feeling like I'm Akademiks.
To the details, okay? Now, opening statements happen. Now, remember, they were at 43 jurors. They had to whittle it down to 18. They did that rather quick this morning. Both sides had what they call preemptive strikes, where they could basically, it's like a red flag or a yellow flag, throw it on the plate, yo, get this motherfucker off the jury pool. They got to 18, and immediately those people got sworn in, and immediately the jury is now seated and is going to be sitting for the duration of the Diddy trial. So what usually happens with the trial, the judge goes over the case, basically says why everybody's here, also explains legally, you know, the ramifications of jury selection and whatever, and also what this person is potentially facing in terms of his freedom, and then basically goes into how it's going to work. Then we obviously see opening statements by the prosecutor and also the defense. That's basically a summary, a pre-summary. That's some Lauren LaRosa shit. I can't stop taking shots at that hoe. I ain't gonna lie to you. She started disrespect. I hope y'all, when I'm dissing her 5 years from now, I hope y'all don't be like, yo, Ak, why you dissing this bitch? No, never. I'm not stopping. Fuck it. Fucking bitch. Anyway. Calm it down. So, opening statements, it's like a summary, right? Yo, let me tell you what you should expect to hear, as the prosecutor would say that. We're going to bring these witnesses. So it's going to give us a good preview of what is to come. What Diddy's defense team is going to do in their opening statements is kind of take the theory that the prosecutor is going with and say, this is all taken out of context. It's misunderstood. It's a bunch of hogwash. They're trying to bury this guy with all type of things that are, you know, out of context. It might look bad, but this guy's innocent. We're going to, without further ado, let's get into the tweets. I want to say shout out to my man, Inner City Press. Also, salute to some great people who are in court today. They actually said, I got their cell phone numbers. They said, Ak, hit us anytime. We got you the details. Now, granted, I want to try to start a poll on every platform, Kick, Rumble, and also even both YouTube channels. Should Big Ak show up to one of these goddamn trial dates? I want to show up. I want to see what's going on live and live in person. You get what I'm saying? Here we go. So, shout out to Inner City Press. I'm going to read a bunch of his tweets. He's in court. And again, if you don't know, there's not any cameras allowed in court. So essentially, I don't know how he's doing it. I don't even know if they allow the phones in there necessarily, but he's somehow scribing to the tweets in almost pretty much in real time to update us on what's going on. By the way, we did the same thing for the 6ix9ine trial. This is going to be our main update way. Other than when it's lunchtime, they're going to be able to leave court, and then we can get a video update from whoever was there. We'll try to check as many updates as we can to get a fair and balanced perspective, because remember what happened in the Tory case. We were hearing pretty much one narrative, like, yo, Tory finna spank this, then Tory gets found guilty. We want to be as fair as we could be. If you're asking my disposition in terms of biasness, I have no bias in this. If Diddy did some of these things, like I've heard about Diddy being this evil monster. So I don't know the nigga. I spoke to him once while he was in jail, okay? Other than that, I ain't speak to him. I never knew him. And I always saw everybody in hip-hop was always kind of scared of him, claiming that he had some other type of, you know, otherworldly powers to get people disappeared. Then we watched last night with I'll Be Sure. He's saying that his mystery, coma, and stroke, he's blaming on Diddy. So we have no idea. Anyway, let's get into this. So at 8:37 a.m., and this is East Coast time, and if you guys are wondering, no matter where you guys are from. By the way, real quick, everybody, we do need to do this. We do this pretty much, or I'm trying to do this every stream. I need everybody to check in. Where are you repping? Where are you from? By the way, I haven't ordered my 2 coffees yet. For whatever reason, McDonald's will not deliver before 5 o'clock today. I don't know what the fuck's going on, so I have to schedule for 5. So I won't get coffee for 4 hours, so keep me up. By the way, if you realize, me with coffee and stream, way better. So I ordered 2 black coffees, but I haven't gotten, won't get here for a while. Anyway, so everybody check in. I don't care if you're from Wisconsin, if you're from LA, if you're from Seattle, Washington, if you're from Omaha, if you're from Nebraska, wherever the fuck you're from, just check in real quick, okay? Or you're from Idaho. Anyway, or if you're from anywhere else in the world. Shout out to my people, Toronto, Mississippi, Boston in the building, California in the building. Ooh, Arizona. Did I say that already? Somebody says Jamaica. That's where I'm from, born and raised. Damn. I see y'all boys in here. Charlotte in the building. I want to come to Charlotte, man. Charlotte looks like a great place. Las Vegas, Vermont, Jacksonville, Florida, East Orange, New Jersey. Okay, we got East Los Angeles in there. Someone said, I'm surprised you're not drunk yet. Well, I start with a little bit of alcohol, but today is the day that makes me me and makes the rest of these motherfuckers bum. So I got to be on my shit. And even though, trust me, I want to go do another rant, but today's the day. We got to get back to what we do. This is what separates us from the bums. Okay? I see all y'all in here. New Orleans. Bozeman, Montana. Never heard of that before, but cool. I'm hearing about it now. Kinshasa, Congo. Ooh, okay. I see you out there. Bull City. What's Bull City? I don't know what that is. Brooklyn. Alabama, Houston, Trinidad, and South Africa. I see y'all on here. I love y'all. Big VA in the building as well. Tampa, Florida. Of course, I just seen Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Visala, Cali. Okay, Louisville, Kentucky. Okay, that's for what's going on. Let me go see where people from Kick are from. Where my people from Kick? Where y'all at? Broward County in the building. Okay, so all the Broward niggas is over at Kick. Oh, they getting get over there then. St. Petersburg, Florida. I always want to go there. That's where Rod Wave is from. Egypt. Okay. I see another thing that say Broward. Dallas. Norway. You ain't from Norway. Stop capping. Houston. Somebody said we're watching from Kenya. Oh, my God. I love y'all in Kenya. Tampa, Flatbush, Missouri, Ethiopia. And you're not from Antarctica. Stop it. Cincinnati, Ottawa, Dallas, Philly in the building. St. Martin. Damn. Probably a dope-ass country I want to go. All right, cool. Let's get into this stuff real quick, chat. Again, we are here to try to, as much as this trial is not being streamed, this is where we've covered this trial. Every update, we could give as much details. We're trying to do it live. And by the way, if you're thinking about should I go to the trial, this is the advantage. I get to cover, in between tweets, we could go look something up, look at old interviews, videos, see how it all connects. Anyway, let's get into it. So 8:37 this morning, Sean Combs has still not been brought into the courtroom. The lawyers are milling around. Brian Steele, shout out to Brian Steele, who's, by the way, I think he's like third chair on the attorney list. He comes up to AUSA Maureen Comey, which is the daughter of former FBI director James Comey, to shake hands. Okay, so, got to shake hands with the ops before you slaughter them. Brian Steele is a shrewd operator. That's exactly how he operated in Fulton County. He made the Fulton County DAs look like jokes, like they didn't even have a law degree. And he did it respectfully. He did it in a way where it felt like it was just business and it wasn't personal. So him going up and shaking hands with the AUSA, if Brian Steele, and I don't know how much he will be taking the lead in making some of these statements. We're going to see who does an opening for Diddy. Is it Brian Steele? I think it's going to be Mark Agnifilio because he's been the number one from the get-go. Number two is going to be Tenny Garagos. That's a woman who is the daughter of Mark Garagos, okay? By the way, I did get confirmation because one of the PR people that's working for Diddy who hit me said, hey, I'm going to be in court. Here's my cell phone number. Call me anytime. I looked at their bio from the thing they sent, and it says they work at Garagos and Garagos. You know what that means? That means Diddy's PR person works for Mark Garagos. So Mark Garagos pretty much does work for them, right? Even though he's not the official lawyer, but his daughter is, okay? Anyway, second reason why I do believe that Tenny Garagos, which is the second, in order of the lawyers, we have Mark Agnifilio. He's going to be the lead. He's going to do most of the heavy lifting, I think. Then we're going to have Tenny Garagos, okay? I heard she's a very fine attorney, really good. Daughter of Mark Garagos, but here's the thing, too. When it comes to sexual assault cases or any cases having to do with, the assault of a woman, whether it's domestic abuse all the way to sexual assault, sometimes when a woman is your lawyer arguing on your behalf, it looks a little bit better, right? Because a woman could say certain things like, nah, Cassie wanted that shit. If a dude says it, you see misogynistic. It's a double standard of life. Everybody knows it. A woman could, her tone, her making certain points hits differently rather than a man, right? So she's number two, and I think it's important that she's number two because you needed a woman on this at some point. Number three is going to be Brian Steele. Will Brian Steele actually cross-examine any of these witnesses? What Brian Steele was pretty good at doing, his cross-examinations were amazing. His motions were amazing when we looked at the YSL case. Will we see any of that? This is a dude who, he's like Luka. He's like, who's the hottest or best player in the NBA right now? That's Brian Steele. So we're not expecting him to just be sitting in the back, like just whispering in, his client's ear or like the ear or just writing notes, passing it to other defense attorneys. We expect him to make some significant impact. He just came off a big win. He has to be involved in some way. We will see how that is. Okay. So Comey and Brian still shake hands. Agnifilio and Alex Shapiro are conferring. By the way, I think Alexander Shapiro is a lawyer that was hired for the appellate process. Remember when Diddy was trying to get out of jail? When Diddy was trying to get out of jail, the magistrate, not only the magistrate, which is an intake judge, the district judge, which is a submarinian, that guy, he denied Diddy's bail appeal, right? So what happened was they went to appellate court. And this is how it works in federal court, but it works like this kind of almost in state court. You could do what's called interlocutory appeals, which means appeals within the trial. And sometimes those will be happening while the case is still going, or sometimes those decisions are so important, they'll pause the case to get the decision on the appeal. So what happens is appellate court is so different because appellate court doesn't work like regular court. Appellate court works off, you submit an appeal, right? And after the appeal, you submit these briefs. The ops or the government submit their responses. You submit another response to them. Sometimes they do a counter, and then the judge mulls over everything. Usually they don't make a decision. They usually say, we're going to set a date that y'all could argue it, 20 minutes each orally. After that, I'm going to take 2 weeks. I'm going to decide. So usually people get different lawyers for that. So appellate court, sometimes you get different lawyers. I believe Alexander Shapiro is, I was going to play this, was, I think she was working on the, appellate lawyer. See, highly experienced appellate lawyer. So when Diddy was trying to get out of jail, remember Diddy quit on doing that. He basically consolidated his team and said, fuck it, let's just go to trial. But his appellate lawyers, he didn't just dismiss them because we're not in appellate court now. We're in main court. But the reason why he's keeping on Alexander Shapiro on his main team, remember, he has 8 lawyers, right? Brian Steele, Mark Agnifilio, Tenny Garagos, Alexander Shapiro, she comes from the appellate side. Number one, she's a woman, which is a good look. Number two, if there needs to be an appeal. So what happens in court, and this is, again, I'm giving y'all some basic things that we could understand what we're about to see. If in court, let's say, it's a very, they're about to allow questioning along the lines of, Diddy doing something that was uncharged, or Diddy doing something to somebody who's not a victim. A lot of times what will happen is you'll hear objection, which means, hey, based on what we talked about in pretrial, this should not be allowed in the trial. Now, an objection in a trial is very important. It's what's called creating a record. So you have to create. So when a defense attorney objects, they put a note on the record that they had a problem with something. That is very necessary if you ever want to appeal. For example, with Tory Lanez didn't object to certain things, and because of his lack of objection, that is weighed differently when he wanted to appeal. So you need somebody to make sure the prosecutor doesn't fuck you over and just takes advantage of you. So having an appellate lawyer in there, I'm pretty sure she's going to be there to say, hey, object to this, because if we lose this argument or lose whatever, I need that objection on the record to appeal, okay? And by the way, so the objection is called preserving the record. Now everything is recorded, but when you object, you preserve that record of what you objected to. And when they look at that in the sense of an appeal, that's how they kind of like, all right, well, you objected to this, the judge overruled it, but you want a second look at it. Okay, let's look at it. If you never objected, sometimes they won't look at it, all right? So this person is, by the way, and interestingly enough, this person also worked for Sam Bankman-Fried. Remember when I told you Diddy was in the jail with not only 6ix9ine, but as well with Sam Bankman-Fried. So Diddy, Sam Bankman-Fried, that's the FBF guy, and Diddy were all in the same jail. Do you think it's coincidental that Diddy basically hires his attorney? Now, granted, all these rich, famous guys share attorneys, but he hired his attorney, and I'm wondering if that's probably because of jail talk. Like, yo, who you got for your case? Oh, okay, I need somebody. All right, bet, let's hire her, okay? So she is on that case. She's an appellate lawyer, okay? Remember, appellate lawyer. So if you ask me what's her role going to be, her role is not going to be doing too much of main court shit. She's going to be sitting back, listening to everything, watching for everything. This is a contingency type of situation. If Diddy loses, appeals are going out right away. That's her job. Sit there, figure out everything that's being wronged in the case that you could use for Diddy. That's number one. Number two, raise these objections or have Mark or Tenny or Brian Steele raise these objections. Will she be cross examining people? Nah, I don't think so. Will she be doing opening closing statements? Nah, I don't think so. But she's there to make sure if Diddy blows trial, she's one of the best appellate lawyers in the land. She's going to make sure that he has a case at least in appellate court. Cool. Let's get back to it, chat. By the way, I'm sorry if you guys have never watched me. I know y'all watch me destroy these motherfuckers on rants. Y'all watch me when I'm doing my comedy shit. Y'all watch me in a lot of different phases. This is the phase where Ak locks in. I'm going to give you a lot of details. I'm usually really heavy detail filled. Sometimes you might be like, Ak, we know this. There's somebody in the stream that don't know it. I'm trying to break all this illegalese down to the regular person. And we don't have cameras, so we're trying to get the best understanding we can, okay? And sometimes this court stuff could be confusing. I feel like I've put the work in to try to understand it, to break it down to y'all, okay? Hopefully you guys appreciate. I see people spamming on. Okay. So now you guys are getting the cast of characters. We got Brian Steele. Looks like he's the third, okay? This is the big three. This is the big three. We got Mark, Tenny, Brian Steele. That's the big three. Alexandra Shapiro, she's an appellate lawyer. She's going to still be in there, but we don't expect her to do much other than prepare for any appeals. Okay? Okay, the first step is going to be to preemptive challenges to 45 prospective jurors. Okay? 8:53, Sean Combs is now in the courtroom. By the way, they're on time. This is federal court. One thing about federal court, they have a reputation for going fast. They have a reputation for essentially when deadlines are set, we're going to do it when we say it. They move like this. They do get a bunch of cases. Obviously, it's a federal court that serves the entire 50 states and territories of the United States. They're not going to drag out cases for years and whatever. They're usually, when they say they are ready for a trial, they're ready for trial, okay? And judges are less forgiving in giving you more time, especially if you're not working on a plea or there aren't other extenuating circumstances. So it's like this. So we're even realizing Diddy gets to court 8:53. Let's get it going on, right? What is he wearing? He's wearing a light sweater instead of last week's dark blue. That also might be kind of, if we think about just optics-wise, wearing lighter colors, seeming more, you got to make this guy not seem like a demon. He's going to be described as a demon and a monster his whole trial. Wearing light colors, that might be some psychology right there. Last week, before the jury was seated, he showed up in darker colors. Now he's showing up in lighter colors. That might be, again, I know this might sound like really trivial. It might be like, well, nah, nobody think. Yes, Diddy's paying tens of millions of dollars. I'm pretty sure they're thinking about everything, including his outfit, okay? So now he's showing up in a light sweater instead of last week's dark blue. He turns and blows a kiss to his family and members in the second row of the gallery, okay? 8:56, the clerk basically is going to confirm everybody's good before the judge walks in, and that's where we're going to go. The clerk says, everybody ready? Everybody's ready? This is game day. Clerk says, Mr. Combs, were you able to get some water? We'll make arrangements for it, okay? The judge still hasn't come in. 9:03, Agnifilio and Tenny, they're going over papers. This is game day. First day. This is game one of the NBA Finals. This is the Super Bowl. You can't fuck up. They're going over papers. By the way, the mere fact that we keep hearing about Agnifilio and Tenny, their strategy, even before Brian Steele was hired, them going into it, they're 1-2 in this shit. Yo, look at this. Make sure you remember this. This is what we're gonna do on Cross. Hey, remember they were probably spent the entire weekend going over. They probably had investigators out to go over all 43 people's criminal history, everything history. Scour their social media to see who are we gonna sit on his jury. Combs, Diddy. He's wearing reading glasses. He's also looking down at papers. You got to be involved in your own trial unless you just want to get sent up the river, right? 3 of the 6 prosecutors are looking at or typing on their cell phones. So the prosecutors are chilling. They're like, yo, we about to send this bum-ass nigga Diddy to jail, okay? They're cooling. 9:26. The Combs lawyer, Agnifilio, and prosecutor, Maureen Comer, are the only ones in with Judge Summerian, presumably doing the preemptive strikes to the jury pool, okay? In New York State Court, this is all done in public, in a courtroom, on the record. Wait for announcement of jurors, okay? So it looks like So it looks like they may have done it in private, but this, inner city press is saying in state court, usually this is done in public. So at 9:34, we're off. Judge says, good morning. We're here for preemptive challenges, okay? Or there was a part that was done in private, I guess, because they're doing some of this is on public. AUSA Comey says, we strike juror 51. Agnifilio says, we strike 52 and 106. Comey says, we strike 216. Agnifilio says, 157 and 112. Comey says, we strike 118. Agnifilio says, we strike 127, 131. See, so they're basically just chopping them down. Comey says we strike 81. Agnifilio says 149 and 20. Comey says we strike 160. By the way, the preemptive strikes, you don't have to give the reasons, right? Before, the judge kind of had to do this with cause, like, hey, well, why don't you want them to go on to the next round? You make your point, and then they might be like, the judge might be like, hey, could you be fair? And if the person said yes, they would pass them on to the last round. This last round is where you could just, you don't got to give no explanation. Get the fuck off of the jury, But the other side could do it as well. Okay. Comey says the defense was only supposed to strike one this round. Okay. Agnifilio says, okay. So apparently there's a structure. Hey, this round you can strike two. This round you can strike one. This round, and they're gonna whittle down till they get to 18, and whoever's not strike, that's the jury, right? So Comey, which is the daughter again of James Comey, which is a former FBI director, and her name is Maureen Comey. She brings up a point and says, hey, wait, breaking the rules. Agnifilio was only supposed to strike one. He's trying to strike two, which is 22 and 84. And Mark makes a decision to only strike 22. Then Comey says we strike 163. Then Agnifilio in the next round uses the 84 that he was trying to strike in the same round. Comey says we strike 220. Agnifilio says we strike 25. Comey says, I believe he was supposed to strike in the alternate. Agnifilio said, okay, so I guess they have like a situation where there's possible people for alternates and possible people for the pool. Agnifilio waits for a second, confers with Nicole Westmoreland. Okay, now this got to be like a lawyer that probably was involved or a jury specialist lawyer. Let's see. Sean Diddy adds another woman, which is a black woman, to his case. Her name is, it says Sean Diddy has added a team to his high-powered lawyers, a black woman attorney who in 2009 sued a well-known member of the hip-hop community after surviving sexual assault. Nicole Westmoreland, who runs her own firm, joined the rap mogul's defense team this week with a notice of attorney appearance landed in the case docket as jury selection went on the way. Her sole job is probably, as someone who has survived sexual assault, this and third, probably she could notice a few things about the jury pool, help advise them as who they should strike, who not to. Don't know what she's on for the whole case, but we don't know what her involvement is going to be. But we do get her name brought up because she seems important with Agnifilio figuring out who to get off the list next. So she looked like she had some research done. So they then strike, they strike 218. Comey strikes 324. Agnifilio strikes 240. Comey strikes 281. Agnifilio says one moment. And then he says, I note that the government has struck 7 black people out of 9 strikes. Ooh. By the way, I know you might be like, why they're saying this? Everything said here is on the record. Everything is on the record. Remember what I said with objections, you preserve the record. But everything said in open court is on the record. He knows the press is going to hear this. He knows that they're not only fighting the biggest fight is the judicial court, but you're also fighting a court of public opinion. This is a great piece for media to grab. 6 white women that are prosecuting a black man struck 7 black people out of 9. So the white women don't want to see no black people on his goddamn case as jurors, right? And again, that plays good for the narrative. Again, at the end of the day, we're past the point of public court or the court of public opinion. It's all about what's going to be decided. But he made sure to note that, and he's noted on the record. Okay, cool. Agnifilio says, by the way, judge says, I'll give you a chance to raise that, but let's continue, okay? By the way, the reason why he's also bringing that up, remember, you got your appellate lawyer there, right? That could be a conversation about maybe some type of prejudice in how the prosecutor is conducting this whole, trial, or their attempt to conduct the trial. If they're trying to make sure a black man getting tried by supposedly his peers, none of the peers is black. Okay, think about it, right? So cool. The judge says, I'll give you a chance to raise that, but let's continue. Agnophilia says, all right, cool, we're striking 307. Submarinian says, our jurors are going to be 2, 5, 25, 28, 55, 58, 75, 116, 160, 184, 201, 217, 230, 234, 247, 292, 321, and 330. By the way, let me just tweet this out real quick for anybody who's on X. I got to stop using my X to be for bum-ass bitches and actually, hold on, let me see. Wait, X. I'm trying to tweet out our link. All right, chat. By the way, I want to know what y'all think. One of our second highest live stream. Actually, I think third, because we did have 60,000 people in here when we were reading pretty much the verdict for 6ix9ine. And we were going over his case. Biggest streams ever for me. Tory Lanez verdict, 72,000 people were watching while we did that. The number one, obviously, is Drake and Kendrick. I think I had like several hundred thousand. Like, we shouldn't even count that. But other than that, it's always been court shit. So we had Tory at number 2, 6ix9ine at number 3. I really think this is going to be toppling Tory. So I think by the time we get to a verdict, and we're going to have like probably 100,000 people up in here. This shit is not televised. So, again, just lock in with me. We going to make sure we get you all the shit. Let me just tweet out this fucking link. Where y'all at right now? Y'all at work? Y'all chilling? Oh, okay, I tweeted it out. Perfect. All right, we're back to it. So cool. So we kind of got like this list of what is going on. And it says, all right, so Agnophilia says the U.S. struck 7 black people, which amounts to a pattern. The judge says an application has been made under Batson. Ms. Comey, now the white woman who's the daughter of former FBI director James Comey, he says, no, we're neutral. She says we're neutral. So she's saying, no, we're not racist, right? An application has been made under Batson. Let's Google what that is. We gotta understand everything that's going on. Batson, I guess Batson versus Kentucky. That's probably a court case. Yep, Batson versus Kentucky. Let's see what this is. Oh, yeah. In a landmark case, Batson versus Kentucky, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled in 1986 that a prosecutor cannot use preemptive challenges to exclude potential jurors solely based on race. Woo! Hey, Submarinian, he's on his shit. As a judge, obviously this is your job. This is your life's work. When you get anointed or appointed as U.S. District Judge, you serve for life. He's on his shit. He knows exactly what court case this would refer to, or a historic court case that went to the Supreme Court. So Batson versus Kentucky was a case that the Supreme Court listened to, and they ruled in 1986, if you as a prosecutor try to use your preemptive challenges in a racial way to get out all the black people, all the Mexicans, whatever, that is wrong, okay? And by the way, it challenged the removal of these jurors. Basically saying it created an impartial rule. By the way, here's the reason. In a 72 decision, the Supreme Court held that while a defendant is not entitled to have a jury completely or partially composed of his own race, the state, and by the way, the Supreme Court was operating, remember the Supreme Court is the highest court of all the land. Even state courts get to the Supreme Court. So if you have a state case, it goes to your state Supreme Court, and if the state Supreme Court rules, you could possibly bring it to the actual Supreme Court of the United States. By the way, there's 50 Supreme Courts. Each state has their own state Supreme Court, but there's one Supreme Court of the entire land. When the Supreme Court of the United States rules on anything, that's usually precedence. Not only that affects everything in federal court, because obviously it's a federal body, but it affects state court too, and people and also attorneys usually refer to that case in when they're trying to do whatever. So this case, 1986, Kentucky versus Batson versus Kentucky. It looks like the U.S. Supreme Court ruled in a 7-2 decision, hey, the state is not permitted to use its preemptory challenges, right? And this is how jury selection went. We went over this. We have a couple of different rounds until they whittle it down to usually 12 jurors and then maybe 4 or sometimes, in this case, 6 alternates, right? They're saying the preemptory challenges can't be automatically used to exclude potential members just because of their race. The Equal Protection Clause guarantees the defendant that the state will not exclude members of his race from the jury on account of race or false assumption that members of his race are not qualified to serve. So I think that's a great, and by the way, again, chat, this is going to be chess. It's showing you, number one, Diddy's lawyers are prepared. They wanted to raise this on the record. Whoa, hey, 7 out of 9 of the people that they have disqualified are black. What's up? Cool. They bring this on the record. So now it says an application has been made. So the judge is now saying, and this is where all the appellate stuff is going to come in. Because now the judge is saying this is on the record. There is going to be further conversation about this, that if you get found guilty, this is a great thing to bring up on appeal. And also you could say that we did say this was not cool during the trial. The judge made a note of it. We're good. So Diddy's lawyers, Agnophilia, as much as I thought he was like kind of stupid, not really stupid, but because I know he's smart, but he said too much. He wasn't a good PR lawyer. In court, he's doing his thing. Okay, he's doing his thing. Comey, she says, nah, we neutral. Okay, bet. Comey says, juror, so she's now trying to explain herself why she ain't racist. Juror 51 knew 17 of the names, appeared to have seen Making a Band, which is a show Diddy did, has a relative with law enforcement issues. The next strike, he harassed a police officer and didn't report it, had a sister, his sister had an issue, and this clears the bar. There are good reasons, okay? Juror 81, we think they claim to have special knowledge of bipolar. Okay, so she's explaining herself. He said it was inevitable. He'd lose 30% of his income, but won some. So we struck 163, I believe, for cost due to English proficiency, and he had a relative who shot at the police. Okay, so she's explaining why she eliminated all the black people, right? And Comey continues to say, he called the police assholes. We struck him in 281. She said victims can catch a case and jump on a bandwagon. We think she has an agenda. These easily clear the Batson bar. So on the record, the prosecutor in real time has defended why she has taken out 9 of the preemptive challenges that she's eliminated. 7 of them are black. She's saying it got nothing to do with race, but actually because of certain red flags we noticed from them. Judge Submaranian says, I deny. Okay, so it looked like that was almost damn near like a motion. Says, I deny the defense Batson challenge. Those were not based on purposeful discrimination. And by the way, here's the thing. There's pros and cons to all these jurors. It's kind of hard to prove this like Batson, standard because, yeah, I eliminated all the black people, but if I could say one thing bad about each black people that I eliminated, I'm not racist, y'all. So you're telling me all the white people. So I don't know how many black people were potential jurors, but you eliminated 7 out of 9 of them. Come on now. Anyway, whatever. The judge says, we'll bring the jury in a few minutes. Perfect. Here we go. So now 10-17. The jury is now seated. Judge Arun Subramanian says, welcome back. This is United States versus Sean Combs. We will be providing lunch for you in the jury room. We will not release your names to the public. The clerk now swears the jury in. Okay? The judge says questions are not evidence. Only answers given by the witnesses and documents are evidence. You can consider circumstantial evidence like someone walking in with a dripping umbrella. You could surmise it's raining outside even if you don't see it. The judge says that, by the way, this is instructions I was telling you was going to happen. That a witness uses a pseudonym doesn't mean that their testimony is any worthy of less weight. Why does this matter? There's going to be, on the record, some people are going by Jane Doe. So there are going to be certain people who are not going to be called by their real name. Cassie will be called Cassandra Ventura, but there's other people, they will be called Jane Doe. And it will be listed on the record and in transcripts, and I don't believe their real name will ever be used in court. It's trying to protect them and their supposed victims. Says, during the trial, do not read or view anything and listen to anything about a case. Don't post anything. Once the U.S. rests, the defense can present. So they're saying defense first, prosecutors or AUSAs first, then we're going to go to defense, should he choose to. By the way, not in all cases has defenses chosen to produce or provide a response. For example, the guy who killed young Dolph, Justin Johnson, straight shooter, whatever his name is, they had, as soon as the prosecutor finished doing their case, they rested. They said, we don't have a defense. There's no defense needed. We did our cross on their case. We don't want to put nothing else into the air. Of course, that nigga got found guilty. Okay, life. Anyway, so I think that's a bad strategy, but I'm giving my opinion, right? Let's stick with the facts. AUSA Johnson says, this is Sean Combs. So this is now, it appears, opening statements, because now we're finally hearing AUSA speak, right? This is the prosecutor. Now, interestingly enough, Maureen Comey, who's, again, daughter of James Comey, former FBI director, she's not going first. I thought with all the, she was really heavy in jury selection. So is Mark Agnifilio. I thought she was the lead. We heard she was the lead, but we're now hearing AUSA Johnson, which is somebody else. Let's look up that person. AUSA Johnson Diddy. By the way, it's important for us to get a look at these people. So this is Emily Johnson. AUSA Emily Johnson. AUSA Emily Johnson. This is the person who's speaking first, and this is her right here. Okay, so she's the one who's speaking first. And by the way, Maureen Comey, this is her right here. So this is James Comey's daughter. And then the other one, AUSA Emily Johnson, is her. So you see 2 of the 6 white women who are going to be doing their thing. All right. So let's go. It says, this is Sean Combs. To the public, he's a cultural icon, a businessman, larger than life. Sorry, let me make sure I can see it. This is Sean Combs. To the public, he's a cultural icon, or that, they say was. He was a cultural icon, businessman, larger than life. But there was another side to him. You will hear about the 20 years of defendant's crimes. He had a team to help him. Kidnapping, arson, drugs, sex crimes. Let's start with one night. By the way, there's going to be some typos. He's typing quickly, or somebody's typing quickly. Maybe it's AI. I don't know. He was on the hunt for his girlfriend, Cassie. He forced her to have sex with male escorts while he watched and recorded it. He found out Cassie was seeing another man. Furious, he set out to find Cassie and the other man. He woke up an employee, drove to his house, but no one was there. The defendant didn't give up. He kept looking for Cassie. When he found her, he beat her brutally, kicking her in the back and flinging her around like a rag doll, but that wasn't enough. He told Cassie he could release a video of her having sex with male escorts. He broke into a man's house and he beat and blackmailed his girlfriend. These are not his only crimes. Cassie's not the only one he beat and sexually exploited. 20 years of crime. He had a business, Bad Boy Records. That made him right. He relied on his bodyguards, chief of staffs. By the way, when you hear chiefs of staff, you know the person who they call is Ghislaine. That's the person named KK, which is Quran. I forgot what her name is. So his last chief of staff was I'm fucking up the name. Yeah, see? Christina Karam, former chief of staff. By the way, if you remember her when Diddy was going through all this shit, she was pictured with him sitting on Star Island while he was looking dumb stressed. Here we go. And apparently she's like the Ghislaine Maxwell. She's been helping him out with a lot of shit. By the way, we've seen her. I don't know if she's showing up to court, but yeah, remember when he was looking stressed right here? She was sitting right next to him, looking like she just woke up too. So I don't know if she giving him the pussy and she's just the chief of staff, whatever. But she looked like she's locked in with him, where she was, all right, Sean, let's get through this. But she looked like she's a loyal one for Diddy, and probably the one that if she ever turned on Diddy, it's raps, right? So this is another picture. Look like she's there. Look, Diddy look fucking stressed as a motherfucker. She's, you want a mimosa, you want a back rub, you want your balls tickled, whatever. You know what I mean? It is what it is, right? She's on her phone. Diddy was like, look, Diddy's in a fetal position. She's on her phone. She making sure shit happens. She got to help this motherfucker out, right? Again, it is what it is. It is what it is. Okay, bet. So we now hear that the prosecutors are saying chief of staffs have been involved in this, right? It says his bodyguards, chief of staffs, who all ran aspects of his life. The group promoted his power. Only his bodyguards kidnapped an employee and set a car on fire, dangled a person. They delivered drugs whenever he said, including to a woman he forced to have sex. They delivered drugs whenever he said, including to a woman he forced to have sex with, an escort. He transported them across state lines, even out of the country. Let me be very clear. This case is not about a celebrity's private sexual preferences. This was criminal. He coerced and even used violence. Along the trial, it will focus on two women, Cassie and Jane. Now, we all know Cassie. Her name is used. The other victim's name supposedly won't be used. Jane. Who is Jane? From what I've been told, lightly, I haven't gotten into it yet. We'll figure out who it is by basically what they're saying, because we are going to hear what they're saying or see what they're saying. We won't know who they are. I hear Jane Doe is either one or two people. Remember the girl Gina? The girl who basically went on Tasha K and said he forced me to do like after the abortion, he put his hands on me. It's either her or remember the chef that sued Diddy long ago saying Diddy was jerking off or whatever when she came to serving food? Chef Diddy. Former chef for Diddy alleges long-standing abuse, blah, blah, blah. So this is either this person or it's Gina Diddy abuse. And remember, she did the interview with Tasha K. Remember this woman?
Child was, and then he
So either one of them, that's Jane Doe. So we could probably surmise at this point, but we're jumping ahead of the gun. We're gonna find out shortly anyway. But that's witness. That's victim two. That's victim two. By the way, keep in mind, there's two strong victims. The other victims might not even show up to court. One of the victims, supposedly victim 5 or 4, won't be there at all because they said they can't contact that person no more. Some people feel like they may got paid off. Who knows? So the main witnesses, there's no Little Rod, no none of that shit, none of the people that Tony Busby got. We got Cassie and either this woman or the chef. We're going to figure out who Jane Doe is in a short bit. So let's keep it going, chat. Are y'all here with me? Y'all rocking? I got to do a little wellness check on y'all sometimes. Y'all good? We got 11,000 strong on King Akademiks right now. 5,000 strong on the Academy. We got 20,000 people up in here, bright and early, first day. Okay, let's get to it. So, it says, here we go. So we're gonna focus on two women. So they're outlining their plan. We're gonna focus on two women, Cassie and Jane. We will show that the defendant lied, used lies, drugs, threats of violence to force them to have sex with him in front of male escorts. He called them freak-offs, wild king nights, or hotel nights. His staff organized flights, cars, hotels. At his direction, his staff set up the rooms with lubricant and lighting. Ooh, lighting? What the fuck? What type of freaky ass shit is this? Chat, what type of lighting do you bring to the freak-off? What lighting do you bring to the freak-off? Now, we're going to see, by the way, remember we heard this whole thing about baby oil? I've always said, listen, not TMI, but come on, we all grown, y'all have sex too. Baby oil is some cheap nigga lubricant, right? Like, I can't imagine a billionaire using baby oil as sex lubricant. That's some cheap shit, right? Just go get KY or something. So we're going to figure out what the fuck the baby oil was for. It could be for some performance thing. We're going to get to all the details. The only thing we won't see is the videos they're going to show in court. By the way, we haven't heard about necessarily how they're going to treat videos. If maybe they'll say, hey, this is a sensitive thing that showcases a victim being sexually assaulted. Let's clear the courtroom. Everybody get out of here except the jurors. The jurors are going to have to see everything. You know, jurors in cases, even when it's murder cases, you're going to have to see the body. Like, it is what it is if that's part of the evidence, right? They have a bunch of tapes where supposedly are freak-offs. They're going to have to watch them. Will the gallery and press and everybody else be able to watch them? I don't know. That's going to be a matter of privacy, security, and everything else. Obviously, if you're trying to prosecute a criminal case and you claim these people are victims, you don't even want their name to be used. Granted, nobody, I don't think, will be stupid enough to record or try to sneak out a phone and record in federal court, but we've seen that type of dumb shit already. There was a video, 6ix9ine testifying. There was a video of 6ix9ine testifying, which should have never been allowed. This was 6ix9ine on the stand here, and people were very surprised that video ever came out. By the way, that after that video came out, the judge scolded everybody in the court, and there was a lot of other shit that came out. Anyway, let's get back to it. So cool. All right, so at the direction of his staff, they set up lubricant and lighting. The staff came in with cash to pay the escorts and drugs, okay? He made them take MDMA or Molly and ecstasy, and it made them sick but also sexually aroused. He directed every step. By the way, also, according to a lot of the criminal complaints, or the civil complaints, I should say, we heard a lot of allegations that there were, we heard a lot of allegations of the date rape drug. It's called Rufinol, right? Rufinol. Because remember, all the civil cases had this pattern. Oh yeah, I went there, I took one drink, I almost fell asleep, and I woke up and there's 5 niggas fucking me, right? Rofinol. I don't know how to spell it. Oh, yeah, this is how it's spelled. It's spelled Rofinol, right? It's a trademark name for whatever, but it's known colloquially as the date rape drug. So we're going to find out if if the prosecutors do have any type of proof that Diddy was using anything to drug women. Now, granted, we're not here to defend Diddy. We're only here to go over facts. What we have heard, even through, maybe a few minutes of opening statements, did Diddy provide drugs? Yes. Was it the drugs that people expected? We don't know. Did he use something that was out of the ordinary to get somebody in an induced, sedated state that they could be taken advantage of? We haven't seen proof of that yet. However, there's about 80 complaints that claim they had a way to put it in the Ciroc, to put it in whatever. Again, we're at trial. The prosecutors can't come with theories. They got to come with what they could prove. So we're going to hear if we hear anything about date rape drug. So when you hear drug, you got to imagine it's the Molly, it's the fucking pink cocaine, whatever they be snorting and all that bullshit. I'm not hearing date rape drug yet, right? But we'll find out later. Okay, cool. So he expected the women to appear to enjoy themselves. That's very important that they're actually saying this. And by the way, I'm sorry I'm ad-libbing all of this, but we got to be very laborious. It's going to, we're reading tweets here. You know why I think they say that? Because there's going to be a video where Cassie's probably squirting like a motherfucker, like laughing like it's going out of style, like she's having fun. And she's having complete ecstasy while this freak off is happening. And she looks like she's into it. And that's why they're throwing this in early to say he expected them to appear to enjoy themselves. Because what they're going to say, despite whatever videos that will exist of these things happening, these women were not enjoying it. They were being abused. That's why I think they put that in. He masturbated and recorded the events. Cassie was 19 with the hit song. Says Cassie tried to work on her music, but a defendant made her turn down many opportunities. She recorded, but then he had the final say over the music she released. There was never another album. Sorry, hold on. He hit Cassie in the head and drug her by the hair. Now, that's clearly addressing that 2016 video. We've all seen it. We're going to pull up a lot of old shit you guys have seen, but we want to make sure we're all staying on track. Cassie, Diddy, Hotel. This is the video they're clearly referencing.
Disturbing.
They're referencing now, which is this video right here. Hit her in the head, drug her, all that type of stuff. Right? By the way, trigger warning. I know, See? Here's it. Oh, shit. Y'all couldn't see. I'm sorry. Not trying to see. Hit her, bang. And then he drags her. So they're mentioning that video, which, by the way, was not excluded, if you didn't know. In pretrial, the judge did not agree that that video tainted the jury pool and should not be allowed. Anyway, let's keep it going. So it says, so there was never another album. He hit Cassie in the head and drug her by the hair. He stomped on her face in an SUV that made her stay in a hotel for a week to hide her injuries. He set up freak-offs as often as once a week. She spent half of her time. The defendant made an escort urinate in her mouth. Wow. First explosive detail. Diddy made an escort urinate in Cassie's mouth. When Cassie get on that stand, y'all, she fully pregnant. When she start crying, I don't care even if you see the video and she's like, nah, bring both of y'all dicks over here. I want to suck them at the same time. It don't matter what she says. When you see a woman crying and say, yo, he let a nigga pee in my mouth, bro, that's going to just sound crazy. Because, again, the kinkiness that, and by the way, maybe that's their kink. But that just sounds crazy because regular people don't have escorts pee in the love of your life's mouth. Like, I don't care if you're a cuck or whatever. That's not normal. That ain't normal. So when she starts crying and recounting these things, and you know it's going to happen, she's taking a stand. Yo, he told me we were role playing to pretend that I was in Dubai, and he let this escort just shit on my stomach. Oh my God, it's going to be hell, bro. He made an escort pee in her mouth. Okay, cool. Says you will see in his trial, he beat her in the hallway of a hotel. By the way, they're referencing the 2016 video again. Then dragged her back into the freak off. Okay, initially she wanted to make him happy. So now they're positioning this to say She was a young girl, wanted to make it in the industry. She didn't have much money. This guy has a lot of power, money, fame, everything that she probably desires as well in life. And he has this control over her that is probably monetarily, not only physically, but all these things. And she was trying to make him happy, but all he did was use that as a way to abuse her. Cool. The consequences were severe. He said he beat her when he thought she took too long in the bathroom. Defying him would end in violence. She fled, but he found her with the help of his inner circle. Cassie's career was in his hands. He told her he could destroy her career by releasing a video. When he said to have a freak off, she knew she had no choice. She called the escort. So that's another thing they're saying. They're admitting in opening that Cassie was the main person to call the escort. Because that's going to be Diddy's defense and say, yo, how's she a victim? She hired all the guys. So they're making it known now she was forced to call the escorts. And by the way, I think that's a decent point and a pretty easy point that the AUSA could get over. I'm going to tell you why. They're going to say Diddy's too famous. Diddy would have her do his dirty work or other people do his dirty work. Diddy wasn't going to be like, hey, bro, is your cock throbbing again? Come back over and piss in Cassie's mouth and dick her down while I jerk off to you dicking her down. He would have her make the call, even though these people, if they're regulars, would probably know what it is. Okay, cool. She called the escort to put on a performance that he wanted. So they're dressing this up as this is some freaky ass nigga performance. It said her safety depended on keeping him happy. The relationship was complicated. Both were unfaithful, but only one of them had power. So they're giving certain amends here. They're saying, oh, well, okay. What they're playing counter chess. Yo, we know Diddy's team is going to go up there and say, hey, we had two people who were in a very toxic relationship. They both put their hands on each other. But at the end of the day, these allegations only came around after she left Diddy for the trainer because she was cheating. Okay? And after she is with the broke-ass nigga, now she wanted to sue, and that's where the government picked up on that lawsuit and turned it into a Fed case. That's going to be the argument of Diddy. Say, yo, she was cheating, and I left her ass for cheating. Now she's suing. Why didn't she raise all these points while I was with her? So they're admitting. They're giving it up. They said Cassie was cheating too. And again, this is going to show their strategy. He said, but only one of them had power. They're saying, listen, it's not about cheating. It's about who had the power. So he made Cassie do his bidding in those dark hotel rooms. Cassie was not the only one. This was a pattern. Let me tell you about Jane. She was a single mom that started spending time with him in 2020. She fell in love with him. He was seeing other women. Let's see if this is Gina Hugh. I think this might be Gina Hugh. Gina, let's look at the interview. Let me go back to the full interview, and I think this interview is going to. This is part one. Cool. Here we go. Here we go.
And Diddy.
So if she met her, if she says in this interview I met him in 2020, it's her. Remember, she was right before Young Miami, right? By the way, we have no clue if Young Miami is going to be a part of this case, listed as a victim, witness, or has been subpoenaed. She probably did get subpoenaed maybe in a grand jury setting, or she at least talked to the cops. Like, we got to be realistic here. We're not going to do the whack 100 like, oh, yeah, the feds are investigating the whole thing, and they didn't talk to you. Now, they definitely talked to Young Miami. That's a fact.
Nothing really transpired during that meeting in Miami.
No.
Okay.
Nothing.
So,
no. In Vegas.
In Vegas.
Yeah.
Okay. So he was trying to holler in Vegas.
Yes.
Okay, here we go.
Okay. So I want you to be patient with her. Once I get it, it's over.
Yeah.
So, all right. So I want to start from the beginning, okay? Because we discussed a lot over the phone. Mm-hmm. Some very, very intimate details and things that just kind of made me go, wow. Okay. About the specifics of you and Diddy's relationship. So I want to start from the beginning, okay?
Okay.
How long have you known Diddy?
I've known him for 5 years.
5 years.
Yes.
Okay, this might not be her then, because this interview was 5 years ago, and she said she knew him for 5 years, so that would be 10 years ago. That would be 2015. Okay, we don't want to sidetrack. Let's stay on the court shit. She said she started spending time with him in 2020. Doesn't mean when they first met. She fell in love with him. He was seeing other women. One night he told Jane about the freak-offs and made it happen immediately. He took her to a hotel where escort was on the way. He directed her step by step. Jane thought it was a one-time wild night. She was wrong. He continued, offering a real relationship. Jane wanted the escort to wear condoms, but the defendant did not let them. Jane tried to make it through the night without drugs. The first time she broke down and took ecstasy to finish. Another time she vomited, but he said, go do it again. Jane found 2 men and invited them to join the freak-offs. Thought she wasn't with it. Whatever. So she could choose the men. Okay, so she said she ended up start picking the guys because Diddy was just picking whoever. And if she got to do this, she would rather pick the dudes. The defendant discouraged her from working. He had the power to coerce her back into the hotel rooms. He threatened her with the videos. Not even a year ago, he went to her house. Ooh, wow. She was angry. She hit him. So they're admitting that some of these people have been violent with Diddy. He became enraged. She tried to hide. She locked herself in the bedroom. He kicked it open. Then the bathroom, the closet, the guest bedroom. He kicked her to the ground. He did not let Jane be. He said, "You're not going to fuck up my night." He said, "Call up an escort and perform." Jane followed his instructions. His violence got him what he wanted. Cassie will tell you about the time the defendant forces himself on her. The AUSA. Mia. And employees will tell you how the defendant forces him on her, hand up her dress, penetrating her amidst all this violence. He and his inner circle worked to cover up his crimes. The video at the LA hotel, you will hear how just far it went. The defendant offered the hotel security a wad of cash in a brown paper bag with $100,000 in $100 bills. The inner circle kept Cassie in hiding for days. For all of this, he's charged with multiple federal crimes, racketeering, conspiracy. Cassie and Jane will tell you about the most painful experiences of their lives. You'll hear from some of the defendant's employees, including his personal assistant, Mia. Oh my God. So his personal assistant flipped on him. Now we're getting the tea. Sorry for saying that. Sounds gay, right? Mia Diddy. Who's that? Mia? No, not MIA. No, not MIA. Personal assistant MIA. Oh. Okay, we'll figure out who that is in a second. Give me a second. So his personal assistant, who he sexually assaulted, she's grappling with it. You will hear from the employees he forced into the SUV with a gun from a chef. That's the chef, by the way, I was telling you about. Remember the chef? The chef that worked there. They were working punishing hours at times without sleep. They bought drugs from him. They were expected to keep quiet. Some of these witnesses have already received settlements. Ooh, Diddy has cut settlements. Obviously to Cassie, but clearly to other people. Actually, I think the chef got settlements too. Chef Diddy settlement. I think there was a settlement as well. Yep, they settled. Yep. Diddy's former personal chef settles work claim suit. Ooh, okay. We're getting into it, y'all. So it says, they're expecting some of these witnesses, and remember they said witnesses, not victims. So the chef would be a witness, not a victim. AUSA also says, you will hear from some of the escorts. Ooh, the escorts are popping in. That the defendant directed them and filmed it. By the way, this was probably a proffer session with the AUSAs and the escorts to say, hey, this sex act was actually a crime. You could be culpable of it. However, if you cooperate, we will take the idea that you were a work for hire or you might be a victim yourself because you were just doing what you were told and you were being told to necessarily create. Because think about this. If these women are saying they didn't want to do it and the escorts are the ones fucking them or peeing in their mouth or whatever the case is, the escorts are doing a crime. However, look like the AUSAs and the U.S. government's, their perspective is saying, okay, you were only doing this at the direction of this person, and for what you knew, it was all consensual. Right? Cool. You'll hear from some of these escorts that the defendant directed them and filmed it. An escort saw Diddy assault Cassie and drag her by the face during a freak-off. You'll see records from hotel, the damage, and the car services. You'll see the text message in which the defendant tells the staff to bring cash for escorts by Jane saying she didn't want, and by Jane saying she didn't want to do the freak-offs. You'll see videos, and then you'll hear the defendant provide direction to Cassie and Jane, high on ecstasy. So clearly there's going to be video shown of the freak-offs where Diddy's saying, yo, Cassie, swallow that piss real quick. Swallow that piss. Take like whatever. Where clearly Diddy is behind the scenes orchestrating and giving directions, which kind of helps out Cassie's case or Cassie's theory or her side to say, I didn't want to do this. This nigga was telling me what to do and I was doing it. So even if I look like I'm having fun, I'm looking like I'm having fun because he wanted me to appear like I'm enjoying it. But I never really want to do this shit. I bet. You'll see a video of the defendant brutally beating Cassie during a freak-off in an LA hotel. You'll see photos of the damage, including four doors in Jane's home not even a year ago. Who is Jane? Chat, do we have an idea who Jane is? Do we have an idea who Jane is, chat? Wow. Because he says as last year. So that's 2024. Who is Jane? Now, this is Jane Doe 1. If we don't expect there to be other witnesses or victims that's going to be testifying. So the other three, they're going to be named, maybe a statement that they whatever, but they're not going to be testifying supposedly. That's going to be interesting too, because they're going to have to explain to the judge, if you have 4 or 5 victims, why they ain't here? Why is only 2? So that's going to have to be explained. They already brought it up in pretrial that one of the victims have gone ghost, which we all know what probably happened there. Who the hell is Jane? Somebody says Young Miami. I can't imagine it's her, even though it would line up. It would line up. I would think she wouldn't be a part of this because I know, by the way, sex crimes, and there is no thing as snitching when it comes to sex crimes and domestic violence and shit like that. At least when I look at shit like that, snitching is for like y'all hardened criminals that do murders and shit like that. But I would think Young Miami don't want to be a part of this case. It felt like she never wanted to be a part of this case at all. But we'll see. Somebody said Mia, aka Miami. No. Mia is someone else, right? That's a personal assistant. Anyway, let's see. You will see the agreement with the hotel guard barring him from speaking after he got paid $100,000 for the video. You'll hear him manipulate Jane into saying she wanted it. His threats to not pay for her home and text to his staff about it. Ooh, so Jane, he was paying for her home, and he was telling the staff, I'm not paying for this shit if he doesn't get his way. He says, I actually do 3 things. Pay attention to the evidence, follow the judge's instruction on the law, use your common sense, and you'll reach a verdict that Sean Combs is guilty. The judge now says, who is going to speak for the defense? Interestingly enough, and this is a great strategy, this had to be a hell of a pregame strategy, right? Think about the Super Bowl. This pregame strategy probably is just as important as like your heads or tails or, yo, are we going to go with a run-first strategy or a pass-first strategy? So the strategy here is, even though Mark Agnafilio is the lead, they're going with the woman who is a second or co-lead. She's going to be doing the intro. Again, remember, woman speaking up on you not being an abuser to woman or a predator. Woman on face value looks better. By the way, I heard that Tenny's an amazing attorney, just to give her props as well. So Tenny says, this case is about love, jealousy, and money. They're trying to turn it into a racketeering case. It won't work. You're the jury. You will evaluate the witnesses, and finally, the story can come out. This case ain't what you heard on the news. Sean Combs is fascinating. He grew up in Harlem. He built a lawful business. He worked for it. Created a culture. Produced music. Produced music that changed a generation. Witnesses will share with you that he's a fascinating person. So basically, you could tell they're announcing they got some character witnesses. Like, yo, Diddy changed my life. You know what I mean? Blah, blah. It's so good people, right? Witnesses will share that he's a fascinating person. People are drawn to him. If you wanted to climb in music, apparel, or beverages, you wanted to be around Sean Combs. He gave people opportunities to work at his companies. He had a vision that only a few had. The witnesses mostly loved him. The text messages will show that. He's 55 years old. He's going to be Sean Combs. I'm Tenny Garagos. I'm honored to represent him. The only people in this court who will tell you about the racketeering are the prosecutors. Look at him. There's no goddamn conspiracy. This case is about Sean Combs' private sex life. The government has no business in that. These hard-working individuals were educated from Harvard to Howard. He has a temper. He got violent sometimes. He did. He's not proud of that, and we own it. So they're admitting Diddy does have a temper and has gotten violent. He sometimes gets so jealous or angry, he is out of control. You'll hear that he lied to his girlfriends. You may think he's a jerk, he's mean, but he's not being tried for that. He's being tried for running a racketeering enterprises. This is about domestic violence. Now, the AUSA comes in and says, domestic violence is not sex trafficking, okay? He's been charged with, so by the way, it looks like they may have, either objected or somehow I don't know how the AUSA jumped in, but whatever. So basically, I guess, since Tenny says this is about domestic violence, the AUSA wants to correct it because even though it's usually an opening and closing statements, you allow those people to kind of do more of a narrative type rant, but you can't have them say fake shit. You know what I mean? So the AUSA says, whoa, domestic violence ain't sex trafficking. Had he been charged with domestic violence, we would not be sitting through an 8-week trial. Ooh, so it looked like it's scheduled to go through 8 weeks. He's not guilty of these crimes. As the trial goes, never mind. I think no, never mind. This was Tenny. Looked like he forgot to edit. This was Tenny. Okay, so this is Tenny. I don't know why it says AUSA. This is Tenny. So he made a mistake. He said it on the next one. Tenny, not AUSA. So this is Tenny. It says domestic violence is not sex trafficking. Had he been, so essentially what they're trying to say is, if Diddy was guilty of anything, he's guilty of domestic violence. He put his hand on his girl. But is he guilty of sex trafficking? No. He said, had he been charged with domestic violence, we would not be sitting through an 8-week trial. Basically almost saying, if they had charged him with domestic violence, we would have just pled guilty and took a plea. But y'all are charging him with something else. Y'all charging him with sex trafficking. And they don't believe he's guilty of sex trafficking. He says he's not guilty of these crimes. As the trial goes on, we're going to take on accountability. We will not shy away. Tenny also says Sean Combs had a little bit of a different sex life. The alleged victims were all getting something from him. They're all adults. They too must take responsibility for their lives, as he does for his. A free choice has pros and cons. You will evaluate these women. They made free choice every day for years. Ask yourself, what are all the ways this individual had the ability to make these choices? Ask, what's this person getting? Something they want? It may differ. Jealousy drove choices of the victims. Combs never married, but he's a many-woman man. He was always in multiple relationships. He was not always honest. It drove a primal jealousy. Sean Combs is extremely jealous as well. You might think it's hypocritical. They remained in multi-year relationships with him. These women were in love with him. Infidelity and jealousy drove the violence. Alcohol, drugs drove things. But he is not a racketeer. This case is about his relationship with Cassie and Jane. You will hear about the swinger parties. They'll testify about things that they really should never be heard in a federal courtroom. I mean, that he liked to watch. Okay. You may not like that, but you're not here to judge him for his sexual preference. A wealthy rapper paid for these women homes and vacations. He's not charged with being a flawed individual. These women fought to be in a relationship with him. Cassie, I expect you'll hear from her. This is going to be about the 11-year relationship. Combs with Kim Porter, the mother of his 4 kids, he continued with her until death from pneumonia in 2018. He fights with Cassie. The fights were about cheating. This was a toxic relationship. They loved each other, though. Cassie will tell you about how the jealousy of Kim Porter, then Gina. See, now we're hearing about Gina. So maybe it is Gina. I don't know. We don't know yet, though. It might not be Gina because, technically there should be an objection here. If you're saying the name of Jane Doe, you shouldn't say her name, period. The day of the hotel hallway, jealousy was on display. Violence by the elevator bank 10 years ago. You will see it later today. What Combs did in that video is indefensible. The video is not evidence of sex trafficking. Cassie walked out the hotel room with 2 bags. Combs comes down wearing only a towel. He stomps her, drags her by the hoodie. He comes back around to get a phone. What causes a fight about a phone? Phone keeps secrets of infidelity. As soon as he gets the phone, he sits down. He's visibly disgusted. Cassie calls the security. You'll hear from him later today. The guard tells him to leave the public area. You will see Cassie tell him to get back into the hotel room. They stay together for 2 more years after the incident. Even in 2018, they're fighting to stay together. She saw a photo of Diddy with Gina, and he started with her in 2014. Ooh, never mind. Gina might be the person. Looked like he started fucking Gina in 2014, which would make 5 years before the video we were just seeing. Remember I told you there was 10 years? 2014? We'll see. Cassie had a choice every single day to stay with him. That was her better choice until she broke up with him. She wasn't coerced. When she left, there were no repercussions. She ran into the arms of a physical trainer that Combs hired to train her. The only freak-offs you will see at this trial were on her phone, not his. So damn, it looked like Cassie kept the videos of the freak-off. That's kind of odd. That is odd. Why would Cassie have the videos, not Diddy? Maybe she could have been saving them, saying, when I get broke later on, I'm coming for that bread, nigga. I got the freak-off videos here. Fuck that. Anyway, Remember in her lawsuit, she was saying he would threaten with me with releasing them. Why would she still have it? Anyway, I digress. In November of 2018, Kim Porter passes away from pneumonia. Cassie did everything to be there for him. She flew to Georgia amidst a breakup. She flew to be with him. Combs says Kim was my soulmate. The end of the relationship with Combs and Cassie was triggered by that. Oh, shit. So now we know. Looked like when Diddy admitted that, I think he said that in Diddy, Kim Porter. It was an Instagram post, soulmate. He admitted. It was an Instagram post where he said she was his soulmate. Let me see if I can find it. Oh, my God. Atlanta Constitution, what's up with you? And trying to get me to pay for ads. I think this was it. Oh, okay. That post, yeah. Today I'm going to pay tribute to you. I'm going to try to find the words to explain our unexplainable relationship, but he did call her his soulmate eventually. Yeah. We were more than best friends. Yeah, we were more than best friends. We were soulmates. Wow. Okay. So now we're finding out Cassie was like, damn, you still in love with that chick? All right, I'm good, bro. Like, yo, what the fuck? All right. Cassie realized all the things she would... Okay. The end of the relationship with Combs and Cassie was triggered by that. Cassie realized all the things she would not be. She wanted to be Combs' wife, the love of his life. She spent 11 years trying to get that. Cassie married the trainer and is pregnant with her third child. Evaluate Combs' intent at the time. For those 11 years, the messages will show she was a willing participant of their sex life. Cassie's testimony this week can't change that. In 2020 with Jane, Combs was more upfront. He told her he was dating other women. She was still jealous. Jane wanted it public. He proposed a consensual threesome. They went to a private hotel. I expect to say she enjoyed it. You see why they got the woman doing you got to have a woman giving this type of intro. Because if there's a guy saying this, like, oh, this bitch enjoyed it. Yeah, he wasn't shit, but come on. Shit was kind of cool. You got to have Tenny do this. So Tenny, you're getting your money's worth out of Tenny right now. Tenny says, Jane was so desperate to be with him, to give him things others couldn't, she tried to make it more than sexual. I'm not even sure how she'll put it. But it always came back to the parties in the hotel rooms. This was their time together. Jane did it for the cuddle. Well, there might be a typo. Did it for whatever. She wanted to make him happy. She was unable to resist him emotionally. There was a phone call in November 2023. Even after she flew out to see him many more times. It was toxic, but she was willing. Being a willing participant in your sex life is not sex trafficking. If she walked away, she would have lost him. You will see her jealousy. She would see him on social media with another woman and she would send messages of regret. It's not coerced. She was driven to try to be in first place. This was the way to try to get there. This is not a crime. There was a night a year ago when Jane hit Combs. It was born out of jealousy. He hit her back. She was overcome by jealousy. She slammed his head. She slammed his head onto the kitchen counter. Months later, she flew to see him and invited an escort. She will call it one of her best nights, a wild king night, whatever you want to call it. So they must be referencing some text messages, honestly. So they're kind of giving intent to say, if she get up there and says she never liked that, we're going to show the text message. Bitch, didn't you say last night was a really lit wild king night or whatever they want to call it? This will be hard to watch. There are one word, intimate. The government told you about somebody named Mia. Why are they making these allegations now? You'll conclude that everyone has a motive. With Mia, she's never said this before, nor when she first started cooperating with the government. If this was so hostile, why none of these bitches ain't called the police? Why none of these hoes ain't called the fucking police, man? They're vindictive. Their motive is simple. Money. Cassie filed a public lawsuit in 2023. She was living with her parents in a modest home in Connecticut. Then she went to a civil lawyer. The civil lawyer is here today. Ooh, you know who that civil lawyer is? That's Douglas Cassie lawyer. Wow. Cassie lawyer. It's Meredith, who is at Wigder LLP, which I think is where's the Douglas shit? Whatever. Anyway, so that's Cassie's lawyer. Actually, a really good lawyer too. Really good fucking lawyer for civil cases, right? They don't do the Tony Busby and Tyrone Blackburn bullshit. Like they're that's why they got paid. Okay, here we go. They went to civil lawyers to make a money grab. Cassie demanded $30 million. Another asked for $22 million. How many millions of reasons do these witnesses have to lie? The evidence will not make out the charges. Oh, on bribery. So some other woman was asking for 22. I'm guessing that's Jane. On bribery. This is about the Intercontinental Hotel. He did pay a security to make the footage go away. That was solely to prevent bad publicity, not to prevent a case. There was no law enforcement investigation. So they're essentially saying, yeah, he paid for the footage to go away, but that's a PR move. That's not to hinder an investigation, which technically would be obstruction of justice in all 50 states and definitely federally. But there was no law enforcement investigation because she didn't even go to the police and nobody reported it. The kidnapping related to an employee. She worked for him for 10 years. She asked to work for him again. Drug trafficking? Oh, hell nah. Did he just love drugs? He wasn't moving the shit around like Pablo Escobar. They worked hard. They were there to do something great and novel. Everything was free choice. There ain't no goddamn conspiracy. He was paying different men for their time and experience. Porn actors get paid. Hulkamania. Cowboys for Angels. You could pay money for time and experience. That's all Sean Combs was doing. You're not here to impose your morality on this man. If he like freak-offs, he like his girl getting piss in her mouth. If he like that type of shit, that's his kink. If you listen, you'll find him not guilty of these crimes. Thank you. Opening statement's done, y'all. Oh, yeah. Now they broke for lunch real quick. Brian Steele is now acting up. Yo, he got Avengers with him. So the jury leaves. It's about to be lunch, but Brian Steele wants to object. He says, we'll be objecting to the two exhibits. So Brian Steele is going over, Brian Steele is really a godsend, bro. I think I'm telling you, that nigga's the truth. What I seen him do with Young Thug's case, that nigga is the motherfucking truth. So, he's good at all these objections. He's going to turn this shit into a shit show for the prosecutors. Hey, we're objecting to these exhibits. Again, remember, you got to object to preserve the record, okay? Like, you can see, look, objection, preserving record for appeal. Like, you'll see. To preserve an issue for appeal, a counsel must properly object to rulings or actions during the trial. So, we all know what's going on. Cool. So, Brian Steele objects to two exhibits. The judge says, in the future, I'd like to hear this the day before. So, the judge is kind of like chirping back at Brian Steele and say, hey, you have all the evidence they're going to present. This is nothing new. Don't hit me like right before they about to do it, right? Tell me a day before. AUSA says, we only learned they objected. This is about an incident report about the hotel hallway, a broken vase. This report has an addendum. So it looked like maybe Brian Steele was right after all because they added something to the report. And Brian Steele says in the third paragraph, he writes, he did not want Mr. Combs to see Cassie out in the front. He talks about a co-worker. And by the way, this is where a lot of trials are won, chat. The trials are won with these motions. That's why people think YNW Melly has a chance on retrial. Because if they had been sticklers to file the motions and do the pretrial shit to make sure certain stuff can't get brought into court, it's a different case that the jury will hear, and that might go your way. Brian Steele ain't going to let nothing pass by him. And that's going to help increase the chance that Diddy beats this. So you see Brian Steele. Hey, in the third paragraph, he writes that he didn't want Combs to see Cassie out in the front. He talks about a co-worker at ADEY. Mr. Combs is about to yell. This is speculation. We can't let speculation into court. Good observation and good point to raise. Okay? They're now back. Before we get to that, I didn't want to play. There's somebody in court.
For the opening.
There is someone in court. Lauren Crimes got somebody there. They did step out and give a little bit of audio, and you're going to see the madness outside the court. This is, I believe, the Thurgood Marshall Court in Manhattan. And, yeah, this is the streets are blocked off, but it's probably madness. Let's hear from Elizabeth Milner.
inside that courtroom just because of just how crazy it is. I mean, you can just see the lines just going all the way back with media. It's going all the way back just with the public, just so some people could either, one, watch the trial, get a glimpse of Diddy's family members coming in and outside of the courtroom, and even as well as see as his attorneys, whose members include Brian Steele, Mark Agnifilo, Mark Garagos playing in kind of that defensive advisory type of role. So it's crazy out here, especially, you know, it's Diddy, it's high profile celebrities, it's salacious allegations. Then on top of that, he's facing a lot of time behind bars. So you can understand why so many people of the public wanted to be here and wanted to get here super early so that way they could attend. I even heard somebody was standing in line and was auctioning off how much that they would give to somebody else in line for up to $500, $600. So that's just a lot of people here. Now, as far as who was inside the courtroom today, still is a lot of famous faces, or well, let me not say famous faces, but a lot of people that we are definitely familiar with here at Law and Crime. You have Mark Garagos in the courtroom, Karen Agnifilo, who is the wife of Mark Agnifilo, who's also representing Luigi as well too. You had Little Rod inside the courtroom today, and he's one who had filed one of the many civil.
Oh, Little Rod is there. Okay. We don't know if he's a witness. From what we're kind of finding out, it don't seem like it, but he's there.
Claims against Diddy as well too. He came in probably, I would say, maybe a little like 8:30ish, kind of came in with the sunglasses, 2 chains on, as well as his attorney was inside that courtroom as well too. You have all of Diddy's children, with the exception of his youngest daughter, Love, were inside that courtroom. So that includes Quincy Brown, Justin Combs, Christian Combs, Delilah Combs, Chance Combs, Jesse Combs. Chance's mother was inside that courtroom. Diddy's mother was inside that courtroom. The daughter of Diddy's youngest daughter was inside that courtroom, and then you have the twins' caregiver, who is also.
Yo, what's up with this nigga right here? His waves low key kind of spinning though. Look at this nigga. With the daughter of Diddy's youngest daughter has a daughter. What the fuck?
His daughter was inside that courtroom. Diddy's mother was inside that courtroom. The daughter of Diddy's youngest daughter was inside that.
The daughter. Okay, that got to be a Freudian slip, because Diddy's youngest daughter is Baby Love, and she's like 2. How the hell? She can't have a daughter. I think it means the mother of Diddy's youngest daughter. That's what they probably mean. The mother. That's probably a mistake. Look at this nigga right here though.
That courtroom, and then you have the twins' caregiver, who is also best friends with Kim Porter as well too. So
my boy.
A lot of people were inside that courtroom as well for just opening statements, just to get this jury selected, because it went down from 43 to 18 today. And so a lot of people were inside that courtroom. It was body to body. And what can you expect? It's Diddy's first day of trial. So this was, just a little bit of what we were expecting today. But it's crazy out here.
And I will encourage everybody to check out what you're posting on X, Twitter. Because earlier today you actually posted that you saw Rodney Little Rod Jones, one of the first people to sue Sean Combs. He was outside the courthouse. We were always expecting who would end up showing up during the course of this trial. Talk to us about the jury. Who is this jury? What can you tell about how they're
we need a racial breakdown, gender breakdown. Let's hear this.
Reacting so far to opening statements? I mean, NBC has reported you have one juror who's a 69-year-old male, another juror who's a 31-year-old male, another one 51-year-old male. You have a 42-year-old female, and they have different numbers to them. But what are you determining based on the jury? What's the makeup, and how are they positioning? How are they reacting to the opening statement so far?
Yeah, well, kind of a hard question to answer, I should say, just because of where I was sitting inside the gallery. It was really hard to kind of see.
By the way, we got a poll going on King Akademiks right now. We have 15,000 strong just on one page, and the question is Diddy cooked? And 5,600 votes on the King Akademiks YouTube page. 65% of people are saying, "Man, this nigga's cooked." I think we're going to do daily polls on this. If you guys change your minds, definitely vote whatever way you might feel about this, right?
Every single one of their faces when both sides were presenting opening statements. But what I did see from being inside that gallery was some people jotting notes, some people just very much intently listening to both Emily Johnson for the prosecution as well as Tani Garagos for the defense. But as far as the makeup goes, I kind of just took their jury numbers and compared them to the notes that I took last week when I was here for jury selection. You have one who's a scientist, one whose brother is a security guard. He knew Diddy was arrested but didn't even know the charges. You have one person who's part of a union job. He works for the Department of Corrections. Another person who is now retired but previously used to work at Verizon. You had
get a poll going on in the Academy chat as well, okay?
another person
We
who
got 6K strong over there.
friend is a detective, son is a security guard. But, you know, as far as the defense was kind of making their objections today, as far as jury selection goes, and, you know, just kind of the objections they made that, you know, the government was striking 7 black jurors, that type of thing. There were still black jurors that are going to be serving on this panel who are going to be making making the decisions going into those deliberations. So from what I saw of the jury makeup as a whole, it really was a diverse group.
Who's this nigga right here?
Of men and women of all
He
different
said P. Diddy Combs is an innocent man. Yo, I don't know why they always do videos like this. They got to have some security to push these niggas out of the way.
ages, all different walks of life as well, too.
He said the only thing Diddy's guilty of.
So I'm going we hear some
He said
commentary.
the only thing he's guilty of is being a black man. Hilarious.
So I'm going
It really was a diverse group.
Okay, now I'm focusing on her. She said it is a diverse group. We're going to get the full breakdown, ethnic breakdown, age breakdown, and of course, male and female. We'll get it probably from somewhere else. Let's see.
Men and women of all different ages, all different walks of life as well, too.
So I'm going we hear some commentary in the back right there. Obviously, I think there's going to be a lot of commentary when it comes to this case. But Elizabeth, you know, and by the way, just to reiterate something that you mentioned before, the first argument we heard from the defense today was saying that the prosecution, they raised what's called a Batson challenge to their preemptory challenges, saying you're striking jurors based on race, which is improper. The judge didn't side with it. They got a jury selected. Talk about opening statements. I want to start with the prosecution, Emily Johnson. What was the main theme of today, and did you learn something new?
We're going to get this update. And by the way, they did come back for lunch, so we do have some more updates. But we just want to get through this because, again, this person was in court. We can get some actual information about what happened in court. And then we'll slide right over there to the update about what happened, which is here, okay? I think we're probably going to see they're going to call the first witness, as we're going to see here. But we're going to go get to that in a second. Let me go here.
As, you know, alleged victim number 1, but the government came out and just automatically just named her. You know, they talked about the incident where Diddy found out Cassie was seeing another man and that Diddy took his gun and his bodyguard, and Diddy threatened to allegedly kill this man that Cassie was with.
Kushagar, thank you for watching. You say you're watching from India with love. Send my love to you as well.
You know, Emily Johnson talked about how he had beat Cassie so brutally that he also had to take control of her. He kept videos of Cassie sleeping with escorts and threatened to use them against her. These are the types of things we had already known and were already kind of painted out inside those indictments that the government had written up and that type of sort. You know, Diddy referring himself as a king, which is kind of ironic because he has a giant king crown on the back of his neck. You know, Emily Johnson spoke about the defendant using his inner circle to manipulate women that for a while.
Now, I don't think they could bring up the fact of Diddy's tattoos. That was a big thing about Tory Lanez. Like Tory Lanez has an AK-47 tattooed right here. And you ever seen Tory? Look, pause. Tory Lanez shirtless. And this is a tattoo right here. What was said is that if Tory took the stand, it could be brought into to court. But if he didn't take the stand, they couldn't bring up this in the trial, and they never brought it up. But if he did take the stand, they could have asked him about it. And obviously he didn't take the stand. But, you know, it just goes to show, like, if someone has a certain tattoo, apparently we're now realizing that these freak-offs were called Wild King Nights. So they're also kind of throwing out this thing to say Diddy has this king mentality, like he's this king of everybody. He also has a tattoo or some type of thing on the back of his neck that kind of, you know, doubles down on that type of theory. I don't believe that they're going to be allowed to use that as something to help make their case. Okay? By the way, there's still a question. Will Diddy take the stand? There's a lot of questions about that. We got to consider that in the sense of if Diddy doesn't take the stand to explain some of these things that could be like, okay, either way, there's going to be a mountain of not only evidence, but a mountain narrative that Diddy is this freak or creep. And I think there's a possibility that Diddy has to take the stand to just explain himself and say, hey, Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I'm a wild boy. Yeah, I'm a freaky ass nigga. But I'm a freaky ass consensual sex ass nigga. And I helped all these people out and they all try to get their money up off me and then they came with allegations. So we're gonna see if he takes a stand. Let's keep listening to this.
While he watched, how his bodyguards kind of played,
Jill, thank you for the gifted memberships.
as well as employees kind of played a role into this alleged RICO conspiracy as well too, and she made it a point to say this case is not about a celebrity's private sex preferences, because that was something that the defense definitely kind of chalked it up to being, just, that he lived an alternative lifestyle, that type of sort, and we'll talk about that more in a second. While there has been a lot of reports about victim 3 and where her whereabouts are or anything like that, the defense didn't talk about alleged victim number 3. Instead, they kept it pretty short and to the point. They talked about Cassie. They talked about Jane, who we presume to be the other alleged victim. In this case, the government was talking about, the freak-offs being also named Wild King Night, something that we had also known about, as well as even just simply as, hotel nights as well, too. Allegations of flying escorts across state lines, out of the country, into the country, that type of thing, that Diddy had demands to for the staff to set up his rooms in advance, lighting, lube, cash for escorts, drugs for both Diddy and the women that were participating in these types of events. Women had to dress in lingerie, had to wear white nails, tall heels, something that Cassie had pointed out in her civil lawsuit that was later settled. Talking about the drug use. Then they went into kind of, the allegations specifically geared towards Cassie and just how, the defendant had met Cassie. They had a 17-year age difference. Cassie was initially given a 10-album deal, and obviously that never happened as far as putting out a whole bunch of different albums and that type of sort. And so these were types of things that we had already known about. I think some of the more interesting points also go to Jane, as far as the other alleged victim. She was a single mom. She met Diddy around 2020 when Diddy was single, when Jane was single, but Diddy was seeing other people. Diddy introduced Jane to the freak-offs, and she had tried one just to
We want to figure out who Jane is. I'm trying to do some research here to figure out who Jane Doe is.
kind of make him happy, and then just kind of kept going into this repetitive cycle of doing these freak-offs, wild hotel nights, that type of sort, just to kind of appease him, that Jane didn't want to do these freak-offs, and that she had tried at even one point to hire men on her own that worked in the porn industry so she could pick the men. Diddy made her, these escorts not wear condoms when they, allegedly participated in these types of activities. So these were just kind of the big things that were pointed out as far as the government. And Jesse, do you want...
By the way, I'm getting some information here. Jane is definitely not Young Miami. From information I'm getting from people who have some knowledge about their relationship, they said Diddy and Young Miami met in 2021. At her former manager's birthday party. So this idea that they've known each other for 5 years is not correct. That would be about like 4 or 3 years before. And before then, Young Miami was with Southside. So supposedly it's not Young Miami. Supposedly.
Want me to go into the defense? Because the defense was pretty interesting as well, too.
Before you go into the defense, as I was reading about the reporting today, it was the first confirmation that Cassandra Ventura is victim 1 in this case. We always guessed it. We always surmised it. Now we have a definitive answer. And by the way, I think it was either the prosecution or the defense who mentioned that she's going to probably testify this week as we wonder who the first witnesses are going to be. And also this reference to Mia, who is Sean Combs' personal assistant, that is maybe going to provide some important testimony in this case. Now, before we go to the defense, real quick, as though you're looking at all these people that are behind you right now, Elizabeth, are these all reporters? Are these all fans? Are these all people who are supporting Sean Combs, who are not supporting Sean Combs? Are these just interested spectators? I'm trying to get a sense of the people that are walking behind you right now.
It's madness out there.
Yeah, so obviously I was trying not to pay attention so much because it's really so many people, but it's really just kind of a common mix. It's a lot of people who are here with the media. You have field producers, you have social media producers, and pretty much every outlet across the country is here right now inside that courtroom. I would say there's too many supporters beyond that one guy just kind of yelling, and he had been kind of saying some pretty vile things to us as reporters. So, we're trying too much not to pay attention to him as much as possible. As far as the family goes, right before we did this hit, we saw the family kind of get into a Sprinter van and kind of drive off, maybe to get something to eat, maybe to decompress. Because, think about it, Jesse, his children were inside that courtroom, especially his daughters were inside that courtroom hearing about their father,
Damn, I wonder if they ever knew that this nigga was a fucking freak.
Escorts and allegedly beating women and that type of sort. So maybe it was just the time that all the family members just had to get out of here, get away from this media circus. But for the most part, it's a good mix of both media and just the general public who are just genuinely curious.
So Elizabeth, I know you have to jump back into that courtroom because they're going to start up in about 15 minutes. Real quick, if you could summarize the defense's opening statement, some highlights there.
Yeah, the defense's opening statements were pretty, we were kind of expecting them. They were going to have to admit that Diddy had been physically violent towards women in the past. They were going to have to admit that Diddy had this type of temper, that, he participated in taking these types of drugs, and that his temper was especially bad whenever he was on drugs and alcohol. There was a point in the openings where Diddy stood up when Tenny Garagos was introducing him to the jury. For the most part, even throughout.
By the way, real quick, if you're watching on the King Akademiks channel, man, hit that like button, man. We got 15,000 people over there, 1,000 likes. That's disgraceful. Come on, chat. That's disgraceful. We should at least have 6,000 to 7,000 likes. Stop playing.
Opening statements, he kind of sat there calmly. He looked at the jurors. He looked at Tenny Garagos, who again provided the opening statements on the defense's behalf. The defense was kind of harping on the fact that the government has no place in his bedroom, something that we had talked about many of times. Just how they're kind of painting this as somebody, who did bad things on one hand, but were these bad things criminal? And that was essentially what the defense's argument was there. They said that the defense will see domestic violence in this trial, but while they do take it seriously, they say it's not sex trafficking. So I feel like they're trying to divide this line between this being a domestic violence spat or domestic violence toxic relationship type of thing, as opposed to these being actual criminal acts that Diddy was allegedly committing and that type of thing. The defense was saying that these alleged victims were strong, capable women, that they made choices that were for adults, they were free of choice, and they came with both pros and cons, and that type of thing. And then they were kind of talking a lot about how Diddy was jealous and how, other partners or his other relationship partners. So, for example, Cassie. They also mentioned Gina, somebody I had talked about in some stories I had done. She had talked about how Diddy was physically violent with her in a podcast.
Oh, so Gina isn't witness too then. Or maybe she is. Maybe she is. But I don't know if the defense, before Jane takes the stand, if they could say her name. I would think not, because I don't know.
Podcast episode, for example, and so that was kind of her mention there beyond what the government was talking about as far as alleged victims in this case and that type of sort. They had mentioned Kim Porter and how Cassie was jealous of Kim Porter's relationship with Diddy and that type of thing. And then everything kind of ended as soon as Kim Porter had passed away. Cassie went to her memorial service, and that was the last time she had seen Diddy, even prior to her expectation that she'll be inside that courtroom testifying. These jurors are going to see some of these freak off videos, but they say that it was taken from Cassie's devices, not Diddy's devices. And so, they talked about Mia, for example, who had worked with Diddy for a number of years, and the defense says, they want jurors to evaluate her motive to testify. When they were talking about Jane Doe, it was the same thing, that this was a jealous relationship. Jane wanted to be more public, whereas Diddy, he flaunted other relationships that weren't with Jane and that type of thing. So those were some of the biggest takeaways from the defense's openings, as well as the government's openings as well, too.
These are the arguments we anticipated. Now, obviously, there's a lot more detail to it. We're hearing it in an official capacity. And these jurors, while they might have heard certain aspects of this case, this is the first time, presumably, both arguments are being positioned to them for the first time in such a very particular way. And this is opening statements. It's not evidence, but it is the start, the official start of Sean Combs' criminal trial. Elizabeth Milner, thank you so much for reporting. Go back into that courthouse. Stay safe out there. There's a lot of interesting characters you're seeing running around. But thanks, Elizabeth.
Okay, cool. So we're back. We are back, people. We are back, and I hope you guys are. Hope y'all got y'all lunch if it's lunchtime for y'all, or hopefully you're getting your work done, or if you're driving across the country, or however you're consuming this content. Hopefully you guys are getting your day going on. Order some food, kick back. We still got about like 3 more hours before we're out of court, right? Okay, so cool. So they're back in, and they're back in at 122. And everybody's almost back in, and the judge says, in terms of objections, the defense says, hey, we're still waiting for the defendant. So they're so sorry. So Diddy wasn't in court. They bring him in court. They said one exhibit is objected to. That's what the judge is now saying. It says, subject to the U.S. laying the proper foundation, it is admissible. Okay? So remember, there was something that was an addendum to something that was already an exhibit. Diddy's team, Brian Steele, said, nah, get that shit out of here. Like, what the hell? Y'all bringing in last-minute shit? The judge says, listen, as long as there's proper foundation in introducing this material, I'm going to make it admissible. Now, remember, they raised an objection anyway, so later they could talk about it in possible appellate court. The judge says the exhibit with the added note. It says the objection is well taken. It is excluded. So it looked like, oh, never mind, the exhibit with the note. So they allow one with foundation, proper foundation from how the government's going to exclude it, present it. And then the second exhibit, remember there was 2, the judge excludes. So Brian Steele, that's a dub. That's one win right there. So one exhibit cannot be used. That's based off Brian Steele raising that objection. So salute to Brian Steele. Judge says, all rise. The juries enter. Says, is the government ready to call the first witness? AUSA says, first, we have 4 exhibits. The Agnifilio says, we got no problem. Go ahead. So we call LAPD Officer Israel Flores. Flores is now an LAPD officer who says, I'm a reservist for the Army, and I was a guard with Securitas in 2016 in the Intercontinental Hotel near Century City. The AUSA says, what happened on March 5th, 2016? Flores says, I was told of the 6th floor. Flores says, there, I recognize Sean Combs. He's there wearing a gray sweater. AUSA says, what's your title? It says, well, I was the Assistant Director of Security. AUSA then says, well, let me show you a photo of the Intercontinental Hotel. Flores says, yeah, I know it. It's shaped like a pyramid. The judge admits the exhibit. So the picture that they showed, that's called and put on the record as Exhibit 1 or A or whatever the case is, whatever the sequencing is. And then they continue. It says, hey, what kind of incidents do you normally respond to? The dude says, yo, all kinds. We have a couple of suicides there. We prepare incident reports, the 5 W's, okay? AUSA says, would you attach photographs to the reports? Flores says, yes, but not video. We never had the password. AUSA says, when did this incident take place? He says, 11 a.m. I got a report of a woman in distress on the 6th floor. I closed the security base and checked the cameras. There was an African-American man pacing back and forth. I did not see the female. I rushed there. AUSA says, what do you see on the 6th floor? I said, well, Mr. Combs is in a towel and some type of colored socks. He's a rapper and producer. And I saw Cassie, who was on the floor. AUSA says, let me show you some photos. Combs is now in a tuxedo. And in a separate photo, Cassie is smiling. AUSA says, what did you tell them? Flores says they were arguing. They'd have to take it back to they were arguing they'd have to take it back to their room, and that there was a broken vase that, so they were arguing, and the security said, y'all got to take that back to your room. Like, y'all doing too much outside of the room. And says, and there's a broken vase. We're going to charge it to your room. And Cassie says she wanted her phone and her bag. Cassie says she wanted to leave. Combs says, you're not leaving. I saw inside the room a black male wearing dark clothing. AUSA says, well, what did Combs do after Cassie left? Flores says, well, he called for me. He was holding a stack of money, and he says not to tell anyone. What did you say? I said, I don't want your money. The damage is going to be charged to the room. AUSA says, where did Cassie go? He said, after I spoke with her, she left. The car pulled up. She left in a black SUV. So was there a driver? He says 7 feet. I don't know why he says 7 feet. Flores says she wants to leave. I said, I'm talking to her, not you. They left. So it looked like he was checking Diddy to say, yo, this woman wants to leave, and it's not your choice if she could leave or not. AUSA says, then what? It says, well, we went up to Mr. Combs' room to remind him of hotel rules. He opens the door and grabs the phone and says, are you recording me? I pinned him to the wall. So they yanked Diddy up and said, what the fuck, nigga? I pinned him to the wall. I took photos of the broken vase and told him to come clean it up. I went to write up the incident report. He said, is this it? He said, yeah, that's my report with my name on it. The defense says, same objection. By the way, the objection is because the report has additional notes that wasn't known before. and they want to object that we don't want that report in the case. The judge did overrule it as long as there was foundation, and I guess it's foundation. The judge says noted. AUSA says, did you review the video? Flores says yes. AUSA says, I'm handing you a thumb drive with videos. Said, did it have audio? Flores says no. Said, let's walk through it. Who is this? So he's watching the video now. He says, Cassie. And who is this? Said, Mr. Combs. So what's happening here? So, well, she picked up, I guess, not wall phone, the cell phone. So what did you find when you got there? The broken vase. What's at the end of this video? Me coming out the elevator. Let's pull up the incident report again. He said, here we reminded him the checkout time was approaching. He says, what did you add to the incident report after you reviewed the video? What I described in the video. AUSA says, what did you do else with the video? It says, I recorded 2 videos of it with my iPhone to show my wife at home. Ooh. So this guy looked like he recorded videos of that with his iPhone to show his wife. Wow. Interesting. All right, I think we're caught up. Let me do a little refresh. But we might be caught up here. Keep in mind, homie's tweeting in court. It's impossible for him to be all the way, that quick. And also there's time elapsing. They're passing thumb drives. They're loading up videos. Hey, look at this picture. They're doing other things in court. So we're not going to get minute by minute update. But they're definitely in court. And when any updates come out, we will be reporting that. Okay, give me 1 second. So the latest update will be, here we go. So this is after they were take a break. Then we get to here. Then we get to there. 35 minutes ago, 25. Okay. And yeah, so the latest update is 5 minutes ago. He says he recorded 2 videos with his iPhone to show his wife. So that might be one of the reasons why that video is now out. Okay. All right. Update. Again, we're waiting for the following update to this. I'll see is there another update. We're waiting. We are waiting. Yeah. Yep. We're still waiting. Okay. Anything else? I'm wondering if there's anybody else that's streaming outside of the courtroom. Like maybe outside the court, just chilling. Let's see. Let's look up Diddy Trial. Somebody got to be live streaming. We just want to get like what the atmosphere is like. What's going on? Let's see. Filter. Let's go to live video. Law and Crimes is live. We use their stuff for a lot of stuff. Okay, this is outside. Okay, here we go. Okay. So this is outside the courtroom. So these officers are going to make sure that there's just not people standing in the hallway. Also make sure they could create some type of order outside of the courtroom. Clearly increased police presence when we were seeing people enter and exit through this court building, through these same doors. We didn't see this much attention, but we're now seeing it. So it looks like they're making sure all the fuck shit doesn't go too crazy. This was it earlier. So they just got a feed just showing the door. Damn. And people are ranting and raving.
Produce James.
Going to say finish what with people outside the courtroom. They're gonna put it all up there.
Early on,
For part of the.
right now, 60% of you. Am I totally crazy?
No, Jess. I mean, I think we've been talking about this for many months, which is this a situation where they made a federal case out of perhaps a lot of significant state court misconduct or crimes, but to make it a racketeering case, I always thought could potentially be a bridge too far. And we saw precisely what we expected out of the defense today after a very effective, it sounds like, listening to Elizabeth, prosecution argument. The defense did exactly what we thought, which is to say, hey, listen, bad conduct, at times a bad guy, but we're in the wrong courthouse. They made a federal case out of some appalling domestic violence, which they had to concede, and this were, at its worst, consensual conduct by a lot of adults, no children, a lot of adults, perhaps acting badly, among which he was one. So I think it is going to be very interesting, and I wouldn't be surprised if at the end of the day this jury parses charges and perhaps comes in with a compromise verdict.
We're still in the early stages.
Yeah, I think most people, no one's actually predicting a clean sweep that Diddy's going to get found guilty on all counts. People actually think it's going to be a mixed verdict, where some things are going to be thrown out and some things he might get stuck with. And I think that's going to be really interesting.
And by the way, everybody's asking right now, where's the footage? Like, why there's no cameras in the courtroom? Unfortunately, no. There are no cameras in federal courtrooms. That is the federal law right now. Those are the federal rules. I didn't make them. I think it's a big mistake, but there's always a concern. Yeah, I think that there's a mistake, but there's, concern about it improperly tainting the jury, it improperly tainting the case. I've heard the arguments, but in an effort of transparency, when there's a case of so much public interest, I think there should be cameras. There's going to be no audio. Transcripts will be released, and we're going to do something with those as well here on Law and Crime to try to do our best to put you inside that courthouse. So stay tuned on that. We have a question from Dry Roach 69. So submit your questions on YouTube right now. Will tapes be shown? Yes, they will, at least based upon the prosecution's opening.
I really think it's better.
Prosecutor here. First, we enter 4 exhibits. The defense, no objection.
Okay. All right. So we're kind of in limbo here, and I guess this is time for me to interact with you guys in the chat. So if you guys do have questions, I'll, kind of cater to what you guys got going on, and, we'll kind of work off of that. But currently we are waiting for more updates, and it looks like we do have one more. Flores says the video of Flores' video of the video. So remember, he recorded off his cell phone. This is 2016. Has his voiceover, including about how shiny his shoes were, is played for the jury. So the video he took of the video is played. I guess that has audio, but it's a voiceover at this point because he's talking over it. AUSA says, did you work the next day? Flores says, no, I had the next 2 days off. AUSA says, when you came back in, did you look for the video? He says, I did. He says, but it was gone. He said, did you ever see it again? He says, yes, recently. AUSA says, nothing further. Jub Submaranian says cross-examination. So now this is the time for Diddy's team to step up and do it. Brian Steele. Oh, Brian. I don't know why. I'll be looking at Brian Steele like he's Anthony Edwards right now, man. Like that nigga's just cooking. But yeah, Brian Steele looked like he's a surgeon. He's a surgical person. By the way, what he did with YSL Woody and all these other people that were jurors was fucking phenomenal. And it's actually interesting. The lead, Mark Agnifilo, he was very active in pretrial and everything else, picking a jury. That was him. But when it comes to now arguing this case, he didn't do openings. And the first cross-examination of the first witness, Big Brian Steele, is up there. So shout out to Brian Steele, who, by the way, only got like 2 weeks to get ready for this trial. He got hired last minute. He had to get up to speed with it. And he's now doing the heavy lifting because beyond opening statements, this is where you're going to win your case. You got to turn those goddamn witnesses into unreliable or have them basically concede that some of the stuff that they see didn't necessarily constitute as a crime. And Brian Steele, he's now checked into the game. Okay? So cool. Brian Steele says, yo, you said your report was the 5 W's, right? The guy says, yes. Okay. All right. We're going to see what Brian Steele does. What does Brian Steele do? Again, just real quick, we got to go to Brian Steele. His best moments in the YSL case. Okay? Not only was he jamming at halftime, remember how vigorously and aggressively he got at.
Into the 6th and 14th Amendments, United States.
And by the way, this is why he's known as a bulldog now. He got at this court for an ex parte meeting. He vehemently got at him. He basically then supposedly was held in contempt. He never really went to jail, but he did get supposedly, he was taken into custody supposedly. He put his freedom on the line for Jeffrey Williams, and also he got at this judge so much. he got this judge off the case. He got 2 other judges. Remember, we landed with Whitaker. Whitaker was the judge. But the reason why this black judge got off the case, Brian Steele was not playing. This is a little bit of him.
Corresponding sections of the Georgia Constitution, I'm required to make a full and complete statement to the court. For the record, and if God forbid this goes up on appeal for the appellate courts or another tribunal, commission, or administrative body, I was told, based upon information and belief, that when we arrived at 8:30, 9 o'clock today, we did not come into your courtroom until almost 11:30. And what I found out just recently, this is not waived, is that supposedly in chambers, this honorable court reporter at times, honorable court at times, district attorney or district attorneys from the DA's office, as well as investigators, sheriff deputies, Mr. Copeland and his counsel met together. None of the defense team, to my knowledge, was aware that this was going on. It was told, based upon information belief, that it was told to the district attorneys that Mr. Copeland intended to plead the Fifth Amendment. Then I was told, based upon information belief, that...
Let me speed up. They get to an argument. Here we go.
Served 2. And the reason was CC'd to me that never...
Mr. Steele, can I interrupt you for just a second? I'm kind of disturbed because that's ex parte.
So essentially what happened is Brian Steele brings up that he knew some details of what happened in an ex parte meeting. The judge gets mad, be like, how the fuck did you know that? And he's like, yo, tell me who told you. And Brian Steele says, I ain't telling you shit. And they kind of get into a back and forth. Brian Steele stands his ground. Ultimately, a bunch of lawyers showed up to support Brian Steele because he got held in contempt. He never went to jail because an appellate court actually overturned that. But what Brian Steele did just showed his conviction and how hard it goes for a client. He went crazy for Jeffrey Williams. If he could go even nearly as crazy for Diddy might have a fighting chance, even though, I mean, again, this is just passion right here. By the way, he's still an amazing attorney, and we do know this is federal court, not that bullshit they got in Georgia called Fulton County Court. This is federal court that he's in, but clearly that passion is something you want for the person defending you.
That was an ex parte conversation. How did you find out about any of that?
Well, I'm disturbed too. And the reason
I'm asking you a question. How did you find out about it? I'm
going to ask you the question.
Okay.
Scuttle, if you look at SCUDDER versus state, which is 298 Georgia, 438, it's Division 2, 782 Southeast 2D 638, 2016. Our highest court says when a court meets, because Mr. Copeland comes in, meets with the court supposedly made statements, which I assume is somehow what accurate based on.
By the way, Robbie Atkins, thank you for the 5. Say, yo, Ak, I'll see you Thursday. I'm going to make a weekend off it and travel up to New York from Virginia. Didn't get the meet and greet, but I'm sure we'll chop it up. Damn. Wait, how much meet and greets do we have? Chat, I might put some more meet and greets if you guys like really want to come kick it with me, bro. But anyway.
You just said we're entitled, Mr. Williams and every other person wrongly charged.
By the way, the whole thing with meet and greets is like remember, there's a whole show. I got to show up early. We're going to do the meet and greet this and third. I don't want to be there like 5 hours before, and probably I don't want to either, right?
Is entitled under the Georgia Constitution to be present. That's a critical stage.
It's just like when you meet with me, and you and Mr. Adams meet with me, and others have met with me. It's those are ex parte for a lot of different other reasons, but I will certainly note that for purposes of the record.
Well, I'm going forward. What I was told was that Mr. Copeland said,
and you haven't answered my question yet.
I'm not going to answer that question.
You're not?
No, I will not answer that question.
Why will you not answer that question?
Because I want to make sure that what I say is accurate, and I'm not trying to.
No. I'm asking you, how did you get this information?
I'm not telling the court. What I'm saying is based on.
Okay, well, listen, if you don't tell me how you got this information, then you and I are going to have some problems.
We can have I have problems right now.
Okay,
I know. Yo, we can have them problems, bud.
Look, I don't want to know about your problems, okay, at this point in time. All I'm asking you at this point in time is, how did you come upon this information? Look, if the case gets reviewed, the record's going to be available for our appellate court and for whatever reason.
Anthony R., thank you for the gift.
How somehow you have surreptitiously gotten information in regards to the court's private ex parte conversation with a party. I mean,
a party?
Yes.
A witness who was sworn in Friday? The court's telling, this is what I was told. If this is not true, not true. This court handed Mr. Copeland.
Tell me how you got the information.
Listen, whatever you want to do.
Tell me how you got the information, then we can go ahead and go forward.
I'm not going to say that. What I'm going to say is this. I was told, and I hope this concerns the court.
It concerns me that you have proprietary information.
Why is it proprietary?
Or information that you should not be having that was ex parte.
Why?
With a party.
Why?
State of Georgia.
How about the witness? How about Mr. Copeland, who supposedly announced he's not testifying and he'll sit for 2 years, and then supposedly this honorable court,
okay.
or excuse me, let me rephrase that. This court supposedly said, I can hold you until the end of this trial. Ms. Hilton supposedly said, actually, all of the defendants and then all 26 people are disposed of. If that's true, what this is coercion, witness intimidation, ex parte communications that we have a constitutional right to be present for. So I understand that you're upset towards me, but I don't know what I did.
Mr. Steele, I still want to know, how did you come upon this information? Who told you?
What I want to know is, why wasn't I there? Why?
Sir, I'm going to hold you in contempt if you don't tell me who tell me who this information was
I don't want to
come
be
from.
held in contempt.
Well,
I'm not
then
answering that question. That's what
We don't bend, we don't fold, we Brian Steele.
attorney-client privilege information. I am not
attorney-client privilege. Unless you were in my chambers, that's the only way you can figure out. I tell you what, I'm going to give you 5 minutes. If you don't tell me who it is, I'm going to put you. I'm going to put you in contempt because that is not attorney-client privilege.
Attorney work product privilege. I am not.
How did you get that information supposedly from my chambers? Did somebody tell you?
I'm not. You should have told me.
You got 5 minutes.
Well, I don't need it. I want to continue. This is what I was told. Mr. Copeland made statements that he
That nigga said we're in recess. They had to come in and be like,
admitted to killing
we're done.
Donovan Thomas.
We're done. Nah. Yo, and then
Judge, just for the record, is it criminal contempt that you held him in?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and you said you had a hearing earlier today.
No, with criminal contempt, I told him what the contempt was, and that was.
By the way, this was Brian Steele's lawyer. so even a lawyer needs a lawyer, to speak on their behalf.
He refused to tell him. Thank you.
To
announce punishment summarily without.
Yes.
He has a Fifth Amendment privilege against answering those questions. Rule 1.6 protects all.
So, by the way, I heard there was a large amount of lawyers that showed up to court to stand in solidarity with Brian Steele because Brian Steele went crazy. And by the way, what ended up happening after this, the judge ordered Brian Steele to fucking to be put in custody.
Grant him a supersedious bond.
As long as he, when he tells me,
applies, which. So he's.
I want to show you this other part.
Pursuant to the 6th and.
Hold on. Sorry. Hold on. So the 5 minutes passed.
Okay, Mr. Steele, would you take the podium, please, sir? Before I recessed, I asked you, how did you get this information? And it is not covered by work product. There's only one way you could have gotten.
I'm keeping my eye on the updates. All right, chat. We have some time in between updates. We're just giving you the Brian Steele rundown on why this guy is added to Diddy's case and why this is the money guy right now. There's two, like Taco Pina just did some good shit for A$AP Rocky. By the way, that's the reason why I believe Fat Joe just hired him to deal with his sexual assault case. Taco Pina, he went balls to the wall and got not guilty for A$AP Rocky when A$AP Rocky was supposedly heard on audio, and there's a witness that claimed he shot his friend, and his friend was snitching and singing like a Tweety Bird. Taco Pina got that not guilty, but this is the big guy right here. He pretty much got the RICO case. I know it wasn't a not guilty because it was a plea, but he destroyed Fulton County. Like they look like jokes, and Brian Steele was the guy.
So I'm going to ask you again,
and I respect that, and it gives me no joy. But as you know, Georgia rule of professional conduct, please check me. Rule 1.6, comment 5 reads, and this is what I have. 1.6.
I know what the rule says, but here's the thing.
Well, I'm just.
You need to please tell me who you got it from. I'm not asking you sum and substance of anything as of yet, okay? But I need you to tell me how you got the information. If you don't tell me how you got the information, I'm going to hold you in contempt.
I understand. I don't want to be held in contempt.
And I don't want to hold you in contempt, but this is so sacrosanct to have a conversation in my chambers parroted to you and others. It is that serious.
Yeah. That's why I raise it. It is that serious that we should have been there and it shouldn't have happened.
Sir, that's a whole separate issue. And that's why ex parte conversations are recorded.
Why would it be ex parte? You act like it's ex parte under seal.
It's ex parte. It's ex parte because that's what the state asked me to do. It's just like when you asked me for an ex parte conversation.
I've never asked this honorable court or any court to meet with me and a witness.
Sir, you're straying off the issue.
I'm not.
The issue is how did you get this information?
I understand the issue. I promise you I understand it. But what I'm trying to ask you is, if you look at comment 5, this is how I understand the law.
You cannot. You can't violate something and then use privilege. Okay?
I'm not violating anything.
Okay, but that's why I'm saying, how did you get information?
But just listen to what I'm trying to tell you. You're saying, you're threatening me with contempt.
Privilege would occur. The privilege in 1.6 would occur if you were in the right place.
They argued for a while, so let me kind of like speed this up a little bit. The judge is gonna get so mad.
In confidence by the client.
And because I have an idea how you that's said. When I didn't think about it, 5 o'clock today, we'll see where you are. That's in contempt.
And you're saying it's not substance, but I'm telling you, I can't
Buck,
do
thank
that.
you for the gifted, okay?
Under the bar rule.
All right. Well, I'm going to hold you in contempt, and you can think about it. 5 o'clock today, we'll see where you are at that stand on that point. Because no, that's not what I
look. They're pulling out.
That's not what I understand the rule to be. I've not asked you something.
They're about to pull out the cuffs.
Substance of what was said. I asked you how you got it.
You can't do that.
Yes, you can, because I have an idea how you got it.
Well, your idea.
I have an idea how you got it, but that's improper, sir.
Your idea may be wrong, and you're asking me to listen. I told you the first time, and I'm not.
Sir, I don't want to hold you in contempt, but this is that serious,
Judge.
You cannot eavesdrop and get information that was not meant for you to hear at that particular point in time.
Judge, listen, and listen. I'll do whatever you want to 5 o'clock or thereafter. But what I'm trying to tell you is, Your Honor, this is so serious to me. We need a hearing, and I'm moving for a mistrial. It is my understanding, based upon information belief,
from whom?
Part of it.
From whom?
Well, I'd like to get the substance first, and then we can.
Okay, well then you'll be in custody until then, because you need to tell me how you got the information. I'm not asking you what was said. You've already kind of given us some snippets of what you said. That tells me that somebody parroted that information to you. So,
but you're assuming something because I told you already.
Well, then, other than if you were, or one of the deputies gave you that information.
Well, Your Honor.
And if that person gave you that information, I'm not going to have I'm not going to have any further conversation with you about this. I want to know, the question still remains. I want to know who gave you the information?
I'd like to know what information happened outside of presence. That's really it.
He can go into custody at this point.
I think that the court needs to again declare a mistrial based upon.
Okay, and I'm going to deny. I'm going to deny the motion.
I'm going to be honest with you. They did steal like the bailiffs, and obviously they know he's pretty much an officer of the court, and he's there a lot. They didn't just put him in cuffs and put his hand behind his back. They kind of escorted him off. We never saw him in cuffs.
Deny your motion.
I understand that you spoke with the witness outside of our presence.
And whenever, yes, I have. Nick,
you could tell if this was a regular person, this bailiff would have definitely just. Yo, turn around, nigga, like it's done. Cut the mic, it's over. Because the judge said it. But they're being really,
conversation, which is appropriate.
And you influenced the witness based on information belief, and I'd like to have that all on the record.
All right.
I mean, I don't know why that's so hard to do. If nothing happened bad, that's fine. But you're acting like, tell me who it is and don't talk about the substance. Why can't we have an issue that was outside of presence? It should not have been.
Because you got some information that you shouldn't have gotten.
Right there in division, you're acting like.
Okay, they still arguing.
You say, listen, I need
the
supposedly,
ready.
and you did it.
The statement should be heard.
Okay, and by the way, it looked like they're buying time. What ends up happening? Brian Steele eventually goes to sit. The state gets to be heard, and then Brian Steele comes back up afterwards, and he literally says, "If I have to go to jail."
You don't have that luxury at this point in time. You don't.
Addressing the issue, we believe is germane.
Basically, the other guy says, "Yo, we can't do this without." By the way, PT Boy gave me thinking for the 5. It says, "Yo, tell Ak to tell Drill to wear his name tag, bro." What? You want to see Drill?
Sir, you all are really getting yourselves cross purposes at this point in time. Sir, I'm telling you.
Okay, now this is Brian Steele, who takes off his jacket. He's ready to get taken into custody. Really defending Jeffrey Williams.
The challenge I'm having in this particular circumstance. That's not what happened. That's not what happened. That's not what happened. That's not what happened. I'm just telling you, that's not what happened.
Judge, respectfully, we are not obligated to simply accept that there's been no violation. We believe that there has been. And the only
okay, well then you made your. No, we're not doing that at this point in time. So you'll have a choice to make. All right, take Mr. Steele into custody, please.
Yeah, see? Then now he tap on the shoulder. Let me get the blazer off. And he basically whispers to him, "Yo, I'm not gonna put you in cuffs. That's some professional courtesy. I'm not gonna put you in cuffs in the court where there's all these cameras, because that might really fuck up your career. You get what I'm saying? Yo, just walk with me, okay? Walk with me. We gonna go in the back room, okay?" Yeah. So he takes off his jacket. And I ain't gonna lie, again, this is only lawyer privilege. He's gonna still have a chance to talk to the judge before he gets escorted out. He puts it there. He's going to take his tie off.
Your Honor, would the court afford me one moment to confer with counsel regarding the appropriate remedy?
Okay.
Can I say one thing, Your Honor?
And then he says, can I say one thing? And this is where I think Brian Steele secured his spot on Diddy's case right here. Other than, remember when he said this? Remember when he said this? Every drop of blood, Brian Steele. When he was doing the interview, he said, I'm going to defend this nigga with every drop of blood. Remember this?
Very hard for Mr. Williams. I am not supportive of processed
No.
food.
Where is it? He said, yo, right here.
In response to any allegation is Mr. Williams committed no crime whatsoever, and we will fight to my last drop of blood to clear him.
Damn. We'll fight till the last drop of blood. Now you see a lawyer ready to go to jail for you. Gunner wouldn't even go to jail for Young Thug. Brian Steele was like, all right, take it off. Good. I'm ready to go. Lock me up. Lock me up. Yo, Thug was watching like, damn, this nigga realer than some of these other niggas I be rubbing my nose with. Like, he the real slime. That's really YSL Steele.
Yes, sir, you certainly may.
And he goes up and he says this to the judge.
Mr. Williams does not wish to go forward without me being here. You are removing me against his will, my will. You're taking away his right to counsel. And you're conducting material parts of this trial without me present, and I can't learn about it by watching online. So for that reason, additionally, I asked for a mistrial. And I assume you deny, but I'd like you to deny our motions for mistrial. You denied the other people.
I've denied your motion, but I'll certainly take that under advisement, sir.
Okay, no, so I missed that moment. There was a moment where he literally says, if I have to go to jail, can I spend it? Can I spend it in the same cell? I just want to play that part and we'll get back to the Diddy trial. Cell, Brian Steele. Yeah, he wanted to spend. He said, if you're going to lock me up, man, here we go.
Not that bad at evidence. And nobody.
No, this ain't it. Here we go.
Whatever reason that doesn't take, and you don't give a bond, then I'd ask that I can be with Mr. Williams and we work on our case all weekend, for all those weekends. Otherwise, I can't prepare.
He said, lock me up with Jeffrey. God damn it.
I speak with Mr. Williams all the time.
That's up to you. And sir, I will, if that comes to pass, you have my support. I will.
Because he was held in contempt and sentenced to 20 days in jail, which was supposed to be on the weekends because he works weekdays as obviously a lawyer. And he's like, well, if you're going to sentence me to spend jail time on the weekends, can I be locked up in the same jail as Young Thug? Because we got to work on his case. That's a thug, bro.
I'm going to file a notice of appeal, but for whatever reason that doesn't take, and you don't give a bond, then I'd ask that I can be with Mr. Williams and we work on our case all weekend, for all those weekends. Otherwise, I can't prepare. I speak with Mr. Williams all the time.
That's up to you. And sir, I will, if that.
Anyway, all right, let's get back to it, chat. Cool. So now, Brian Steele, we just gave you the little rundowns. Brian Steele is saying, hey, so you mentioned that you got off the elevator at 11:14 or 11:15. You described Mr. Combs as having a devilish expression on his face. Flores says, well, that's my opinion. Well, Steele says, well, when you get off the elevator, what's in your hand? Flores says, my radio. Ooh, okay. Let's see. Then it says, wait, did Mr. Combs didn't attack you, did he? Flores says no. It says, and then was there any law enforcement involvement? Flores says no. It says, you videoed for your wife and kept it, right? It says, I did. So, but there was never law enforcement called. Said there were not. So you told the jury Mr. Combs said to Cassie, you're not leaving, but your report did not say that, right? He says, at that point, I didn't believe it was a significant fact. I'm not going to put down the back and forth. So Brian Steele's bringing up a point. You claim that Diddy told Cassie he couldn't leave, which, by the way, would be technically kidnapping, but you never put it in your report. He said, I wasn't going to put down every detail. So he says, so it wasn't important 9 years ago, but only now it's important, huh? It's Brian Steele, brother. AUSA says, objection. Judge says overruled. Flores says, I didn't put it in the report at the time. So Steele says, you said you were offered a bribe, but hadn't you told him he had to pay for the vase? Flores says yes. Steele says, the gentleman you say you saw in the room, you described to the jury, is not in your report. He says, well, he didn't engage. Why didn't you ask him his name? So, well, he wasn't talking to no one. Steele says, did you tell anyone at the time that you saw a man? Because remember, this guy who's a black guy in the room was supposed to be the sex worker that was fucking Cassie. Because remember, the government is saying that was a ongoing freak off that Cassie was trying to escape from. Did he beat her ass and dragged her back to it? The guy is saying, I'm security. I went up there. I went to the room to be like, yo, bro, y'all can't be doing this. I saw a guy who was a black male in there too. So Steele is saying, why you ain't ask him what his name was? Why? He says, oh, he didn't say nothing to me. He says he wasn't talking to no one. So Steele says, did you tell anyone at the time? Flores says, no. Steele says, and the 7-foot driver, do you know who it was? Flores says, I don't know, but Cassie knew him. Steele says, you didn't put in your report that you offered to call law enforcement, but she refused. Why not? Flores says, she said no. So there was no reason to include it. So that's another point of apparently law enforcement, they're trying to say, oh, we would have involved the cops, but Cassie didn't want us to do it. Steele is saying, it's not in the report. This is why this report and the exhibit is so important. Steele says, you said you put Mr. Combs against the wall. That's aggressive, isn't it? Flores says, it could be, but I only put my forearm against his chest. Steele says, but you didn't put that in your report either. The guy says, you're asking me to have put more detail in my report. Steele says, do you remember the layout? Guy says, no, but it was just a corner room. Steele says, was it a normal hotel room like I was staying, like just one room, or did it have a living room? Guy says, I don't know. Yo, Steele is doing a good job. But I'm probably slopping him off. Pause. The reason why, like, he's showing that this guy's memory ain't all the way there. So when he says shit outside of this report, at least the report he wrote that day, 9 years later, his story is all over the place. He's showing the jury, this nigga is all over the fucking place. So he's saying, do you remember what type of room it is? Can't remember. He says, remember it's a corner room. Well, was there one room? Was there a living room? So I don't remember. He says, well, the third party, you said he was on the bed, right? So he's trying to catch this guy in a lie. He says, it was a pullout. Yeah, Brian Steele trying to catch this nigga in a lie. Yo, I said pause, gang. I said pause. Okay. Now, Steele is a really good lawyer to catch people in lies, kind of showed like their memory might be fuzzy. Then he says, Steele says, you were in the hospitality business as well as security, right? Dude says, yes. Steele then says, Mr. Combs, it was clear to you that he wanted to pay for the damage, right? AUSA says, objection, speculation. The judge says, basically almost saying sustained, but he's saying to the Brian Steele, asking a different way. Mr. Steele says, well, I guess it could be embarrassing for a guest. Objection. And the judge now sustains that, right? Which means when you sustain the objection, it means, yo, stop asking that. Steele says, one moment, nothing further. The judge says redirect. So now the prosecutor gets to come back, clean up whatever. AUSA says, did you typically include every single detail in a report? So now they're responding to how Mr. Steele just exposed this guy, that he's saying a lot of really important shit, but it was never in the report. Like, for example, if you're saying that she told you not to call the cops, why didn't you put that in the report? If you're saying you and him had a physical altercation where you put your hand against his chest and pressed him against the wall, why is that not in the report? If you say you saw a man in the room, why is that not in the report? Everything else is in the report. So that's Brian Steele's angle to show that this report is full of shit. And this report that this nigga is now trying to say, oh yeah, you know, because the state, or not state, but the feds are trying to say, well, it kind of looked like it was a freak off going on there because there was a nigga in the room. They had to check Diddy, all that type of stuff. And the only reason why we never got the cops involved is because, you know, Cassie said no, and obviously she a victim. She might have been scared of him, blah, 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 blah. Diddy's lawyer, Brian Steele, is saying, it's not in the report, though. Why none of that? Why none of the important information 9 years later ain't in the fucking report? Okay? I think it's a good tactic. He said, did you include every single detail in the report? So the AUSA is trying to answer to that now. Flores says no. Says, did he seem drunk or high? Flores says no. That's very important too. Because there, even some people incorrectly reported that Diddy was trying to plead insanity. No, he wasn't. He was saying that there were some of his outbursts was due to some of the mental state or drug-induced states he was in, not saying it alleviated or relieved any responsibility for a crime he may have committed. They're saying if you see him like act out, it might have been because he was drunk or high. The AUSA is saying, was he drunk or high? They're saying, no, he wasn't. So they're trying to establish this pattern that it's not because he was under some, drug-induced state. This guy's just violent. This guy is a monster, right? So Flores says, no. Okay. We cooking, chat. We cooking. We just waiting for some more. Okay, bet. Here we go. AUSA says, when he offered you money, what did he say? Flores says, he said he ain't want nobody to know about it, pretty much. And AUSA says, which way was he dragging Cassie? And Flores says, back to the room, which is the point of that what they wanted to get out anyway. This is nothing further. So now we're going to get on to the second witness. Holy. All right, so the first witness is a security guard. It looks like fully that video of Cassie getting beat on in the Intercontinental Hotel in 2016 is at play. Cassie Diddy Intercontinental. That's at play, okay? So this is the video.
New surveillance footage obtained exclusively by CNN appears to corroborate some of the allegations of abuse against music mogul Sean Diddy Combs. The video, captured on multiple cameras, shows Combs assaulting his then-girlfriend Cassie Ventura in a hallway at a Los Angeles hotel in March 2016. A lawsuit filed by Ventura in November last year and settled the next day referenced actions that seem to match those seen in this video. There is no audio. According to the complaint, Combs became extremely intoxicated and punched Miss Ventura in the face, giving her a black eye, which according to the lawsuit prompted Ventura to try and leave the hotel room. The surveillance video obtained by CNN begins as she enters the hallway. The complaint says as she exited, Mr. Combs awoke and began screaming at Miss Ventura. He followed her into the hallway of the hotel while yelling at her. The complaint goes on to say he grabbed her and then took glass vases in the hallway and threw them at her. In the surveillance video, Combs can be seen grabbing Ventura and throwing her to the ground. As Ventura lies on the ground, Combs then kicks her twice and attempts to drag her on the floor back to the hotel room. Ventura is seen picking up a hotel phone. Combs seems to walk back to the hotel room, then returns and appears to shove her in a corner. Moments later, he can be seen throwing an object in her direction. According to Ventura's now settled lawsuit, the pair began dating several years after they met in 2005. They parted ways in 2019. Combs' attorney said the decision to settle was in no way an admission of wrongdoing. Ventura declined to comment on the video, but her attorney...
Okay, so they're starting out very hot and heavy. That video, which I think is pretty much safe to say, the publication of that video to CNN, it felt like it was a part of a pretrial strategy for the prosecutors to really influence people that may have been saying, hey, well, like, how do we know he was really doing these things? They can't leak the freak off videos, right? We saw them talk about like some things like baby oil, which was like, whoa, baby oil, that's some freaky ass nigga shit. But they needed a little bit more to convince a lot of people and possibly even taint the jury pool. And it looks like that video did do it. And not only was it something to be mentioned to kind of shift public narrative, that is what the first focus is. It's around, remember, the first person is a guy who I think he now works for law enforcement, but he was a security back then in 2016 for the Intercontinental Hotel. He responded to the situation with Diddy and Cassie, and he claimed that he got physical with Diddy after he also stepped in and said, if she wants to leave, she could fucking leave. She leaves. Supposedly they ask her, hey, do you want to press charges or should we call the cops? She says, no, I'm good. Let me get out of here. She leaves with the nigga that's a 7-foot driver. Then they go back to the room to Diddy to check that nigga like, yo, bro, you can't be doing all this here, bro. Like, you're tripping out, man. You got to get out of this. Like, stay in your room or whatever. They say they claim they see another man who was, like, sitting on the bed, who's a black guy. We don't know if it means dark skin, but a guy of African American descent. And apparently Diddy kind of is like, wait, are you recording me? Because I guess he saw a phone in their hand. It's like, wait, you recording me? And then the guy yokes him up or pushes him to the wall like, nigga, what the fuck is up with you, bro? And essentially then reminds him of the rule. Looked like Diddy clearly calms down. And Diddy had offered him money. He said he turned it down. Looked like it was maybe another employee who took the money to like delete it, because the dude said after, he said he did record it with his phone, but he said 2 days later he had 2 days off, and when he came back he couldn't find the footage. So it looks like somebody else took the bread, right? Holy. All right, people. All right. We getting there. We are getting there, man. This is the real day one. Let's see if we can find this. Okay, by the way, let me watch his vlog about what was going on. Here we go.
All right, here we are. Matthew Russell Lee, Inner City Press.
By the way, he's the person who's tweeting.
We're here at the break after the opening statements in U.S. versus Sean Combs. It was quite a process. Number one, there was the jury selection, and we'd been covering it last week, and we did sort of an extra you can find on Substack and extra subscribers about a juror that probably should have been stricken for cause. It's a UN staffer that basically works at the counterterrorism office, and that would work with U.S. law enforcement, which he then denied. In any event, the opening statements were quite something. It turns out it's a more stripped-down case, at least than I thought. The U.S. attorney Johnson talked about Cassie and Jane, which is a pseudonym, and also a Mia and arson. Now, Tenny Garagos, in her opening statement, said, this is just about private sexual behavior. They don't dispute that Combs can be violent and jealous, but that should never have been a federal case, and that the witnesses are all have their own interests, including filthy lucre, money. So we're going to see how it plays out. Right at the end, after the jury left, Brian Steele, they brought up from Georgia after the Young Thug trial, made some evidentiary objections about the reports about the Intercontinental Hotel lobby, elevator lobby violence. So that should be resolved.
Now, the case might be structured in many different ways, right? Remember, this is a big case. They know what's going to happen. Brian Steele his only job might be deal with this footage. Like, Steele, your job is to make this footage look not that important. And maybe we see Mark Agnifilo, or Agnifilo, however you say his name. I know I'm fucking his name up a bunch. Maybe his job will be, because you know what the next case, the next phase is going to be. Who is going to, and this is the heavy lifting of the whole trial, if you ask me. Who is going to be the attorney to cross-examine Cassie? Supposedly Cassie is supposed to take the stand at some point this week, but we're going to probably see escorts. We're going to see all type of people, hotel staff, security, former personal assistants. They're going to take the stand, I would imagine, first. When Cassie gets on that bitch, that's going to be time. It's going to probably be, she's going to be on the stand for at least 2 days, I would imagine. She's the star key witness. Without her, this case is flimsy. So whoever the attorney for Diddy that's going to be combing through everything she says, again, cross is going to be brutal. I would imagine the AUSAs have prepared her for this. I would imagine that her current husband is probably there supporting her. Remember, she is pregnant. It's going to be brutal. They have to chop her down. They have to remind the jury and the audience and everybody who is witnessing this case, Cassie might be this demure young woman now who is having a child and is happily married, but back then she was a freak. That was a nympho that couldn't get enough of penis. And that's how Diddy's going to put it across. And she liked to do freaky shit like how he liked to do freaky shit. And they were in it together. We're going to see how that plays. I'm wondering if Tenny is going to do that part, or maybe it's Mark. Or maybe they leave everything to Brian Steele. I don't think they'll leave everything to Brian Steele, but Brian Steele, he got up first, and he's doing his thing to try to get this idea about the first part of the state's case is to show, hey, this is what happens when you defy Sean Combs. You leave a freak off. He drags you back, he beats your ass, and forces you to fuck other people. Brian Steele is trying to show, no, you guys are spinning this into something that it's not. How do we know there's a freak off going on? Oh, the guy says, well, the prosecutor put the person on the stand and said, there's a guy in the room. How come we ain't hear nothing about this guy in any reports other than you saying it now? So that's where we're at with it.
Resolved this afternoon as the witnesses began, including with some hotel witnesses. So Inner City Press, we're on the case. We're covering other cases too. I just stopped at the Mag Court. A man was released after 2 uses of a gun. Well, 1 brandishing and 1 using. Ordered released, but there's been a request by the government for a stay, which was denied, but they're going to be appealing it. So we're going to be covering that as well. But Diddy it is. In for a pound, in for a penny, in for a pound. Inner City Press on the case.
Interesting. We're still monitoring the Tory situation. It's still a top story. The Tory situation, according to his team, he's in critical condition. We're going to see. Okay? We're also finding out some other details. Apparently, Diddy had a Bible on the trial desk, or the desk he's sitting with his attorneys. Said Diddy looked like he's leaning on faith as he goes through federal trial for sex trafficking because he was reading from the Holy Bible in court. The Bad Boys founder had a Bible at his table on Monday and was reading scriptures before opening statements from the prosecution and the defense team, according to folks in a courtroom. They said that he had a lot of family supporting him, and including a bunch of his kids at the Combs. And the Combs family looked stoic as federal prosecutors laid out their case against him, with the fam showing no emotions whatsoever. Wearing a sweater over a collared shirt, Diddy hardly moved as the prosecution addressed the jury. He fidgeted his feet a bit and had a blank stare. One of Diddy's defense lawyers, Tenny Garagos, handling open statements, and a couple of jurors appeared to nod off, resting their heads in their hands. Garagos was speaking right before lunch. Seemed like jurors were getting tired and hungry. Still, a couple of jurors were taking a ton of notes during Tenny's opening. Her father and famed defense attorney, Mark Garagos, looked like a proud father. So her father's there, as he watched her do her thing. This is Tenny Garagos here. Tenny's husband was also in court. They kissed in a cafeteria during a lunch break after the opening statement, with Tenny ordering, goddamn, they know every fucking thing, egg salad. Why we need to know what his lawyers are eating? Sparkling water and a salt and pepper chips. Cassie's name came up in a bunch of openings, and her defense attorney, Douglas Wigder, yeah, remember, I knew it was Douglas, yeah, Douglas Wigder, huddled with her husband, Alex Fine, in the cafeteria. So it appears, we don't know if Cassie was there, but Cassie is there. Cassie's husband, which is this guy, Alex Fine, is there. Alex wore sunglasses, just like he was outside on his way to the court when he had no mood to talk to our photographer. Diddy's mom, Janice, was also wearing sunglasses. The lunch break is about to end, so let's look at the video of Cassie's man showing up to court. We don't know if Cassie's there as of yet, but he looked like he's going to stay through the whole thing. Keep in mind,
Mormon culture.
This guy has a history with Diddy. Don't know if he ever got violent, physical, or did they shout or cuss each other out. But apparently, Alex Fine was hired by Diddy as Cassie's personal trainer, and it's now resulted in this, where he's now married her and has multiple kids with her, and she's turned around suing him, and he's supporting her. So let's see him walking into court. He's going to be supporting his wife, Cassie. Here we go. If it'll load. Okay, here we go, chat.
Fine, Alex? Alex Fine? Is that you? Are you here supporting Cassie? You look fantastic.
I wonder how big the courtroom is. There's so many people there. Okay. So that's Alex Fine showing up. And then here is now Diddy's mom, Janice Combs, showing up, along with, I think these are the twins. I think we see Justin here. This is Quincy here. And I think this is King, a.k.a. Christian Combs, here. So this is the full family. Look like they walk in. If you can't tell, there's barricades right here. You see police right there. Clearly, they've allowed and they're keeping the public back. This is one of those spectacles. I don't know if you've ever seen the outside the courtroom for when Michael Jackson had trial. Obviously, I think Michael Jackson's he's the biggest, right? Michael Jackson trial outside. Yeah, Michael Jackson outside court. It was crazy. Look, him leaving court. Look. Okay, I'm trying to see. There were people chanting. It was madness. It was madness. These are pictures he took outside court. People were crying. There was so much going. This is him arriving to court. Okay, we can't really see. Oh, he was showing up to court in handcuffs? What the fuck? Oh, wow. Look, yeah, okay, here we go. Fanfare was ridiculous. Now, I don't think it's going to be like that for Diddy. I don't think people like Diddy like how they love Mike. They love Mike. They love them some Mike. So they're chanting he's innocent. He hops out. Walked in pretty. Yeah, Michael was he really turned from black to white. This shit crazy. Mike walked in pretty confident. He waves. You see all the sheriffs. Okay.
Mr. Jackson has been repeatedly the charges.
You see the fanfare that's going on with him, and I would have guessed the same thing is going to go on with Diddy. Let's see how it looks with his family showing up to court. By the way, remember Diddy. You see Diddy, Diddy's not going to be walking into court because he will be brought there by sheriffs, or not necessarily sheriffs, I believe U.S. Marshals. They're going to be bringing back and forth from the federal holding facility in MDC to court. So they're going to go on the ground, I believe. So you won't see him entering or exiting court. And you won't see how people react to Diddy, but you're going to see all these cameras. You're going to see Diddy's family on the walk up because they walk in through the front of the court. Here we go. Feels like more press than fans, right? Feels like a lot more press than fans. With Michael Jackson was a lot of fans. But, of course, keep in mind, they're not going to see Diddy. So it's like it makes sense it's more press than fans because the fans wouldn't be fans of the family. They're fans of Diddy, if they're any fans, right? Okay, so we see Quincy. Who's this? I think this is one of the daughters. Then we got the two twins. We see Christian here. We see, not Christian, I mean Quincy. Then we see Christian here. Is this Janice? The sisters holding hand in solidarity. We see, he got to be a bodyguard. This nigga look too buff. He look like Shannon Sharp, man. Except there ain't no 20-year-old white woman around. This nigga look like Shannon Sharp. It's like a Shannon outfit, too. Yeah, they're all holding hands. I think this is I think this is Christian. I think these are the twins. Is this Janice? I can't tell. All right. Look like this is a special entrance, by the way, not the regular entrance.
Yes. How are you feeling this morning, Mr. Geragos? Are you ready for today?
Mr. Geragos, anything you have to say as we head into a jury selection and the opening statements?
Have you spoken to Diddy? How's he doing? How's he feeling?
Want anything to say before
going let's see the fit. What are you wearing today? You look fantastic. We love the suit.
This is Tenny Geragos, I believe.
Want anything to say before going
let's see the fit. What are you wearing today? You look fantastic. We love the suit. Today's the day.
Mr. Big Brian Steele.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning, guys. Guys, be careful.
Have you spoken
Do you have
to,
a second for a question?
Have you spoken to Sean Combs? Like, how's he doing? How's he feeling? Does he feel positive today? I know he was nervous last week.
His publicist said that he was upbeat this morning.
Can you confirm that?
I can't talk about the case at all, so I don't want to violate the court's order.
Yeah, there are strict protective orders in federal cases, and you're doing what you got to do.
Well, how was your weekend? What did you do over the weekend? Was it strictly planning, or did you relax, or did you have a drink?
Thinking about you guys.
Okay, agnophilia breaks through. Like he got his little bag with him. Right here. And that's really what it is. Okay, bet. Let's get back to this. We should have some more updates. I apologize. I know, again, remember, we are waiting for updates here from Inner City Press. Inner City Press, we appreciate you, brother. We appreciate you. I would love to get Inner City Press like to come on here like after the trials, or not after the day's done, and to kind of, give us like, because he's pretty impartial. Like, I don't think he gives a fuck if these guys are innocent or guilty. He just says what it is, and I really like him. Okay, anyway, look like the male dancer has been called. Ooh, here we go.